All right. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Bellflower City Council to order Monday, July 11th, 2022 at 7 p.m. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Coops?
Here.
Councilmember Sanchez?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Santinas?
Here.
Councilmember Hamada?
Here.
Mayor Dutton?
Here. All right. We're going to have the invocation led by Councilmember Hamada and the Pledge of Allegiance by Elizabeth Corpus. Everybody please rise.
First off, well, this is really a blessing because this is a packed house. We haven't seen this in a while. So, again, let us pray. Let's see, dear Father, again, we thank you for another awesome evening given to us to conduct the business of your place called Bellflower. Father, we thank you for your goodness and grace in our lives and for the many gifts of community and service that we receive your many blessings. Father, we pray for your hedges of protection as we deal with this dreaded health pandemic, merciless crime, and the multitudes of hazards that fall upon our paths. Father God, again, we ask for your wisdom and guidance on our decisions tonight to ensure clear paths for progress, unity, with a collaboration, and safety for all. We ask this all in your Son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.
Please place your right hand over your heart and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, City Council announcements, and I'll start. Friday Night Flicks has taken over the Town Center Plaza located at 16521 Aidenmore Street. Be sure not to miss out on the great movie lineup of the family-friendly movies throughout the rest of the summer. All movies are projected onto a large outdoor screen and are all preceded by free youth activities provided by the Bellflower Recreation in Motion, which is our BRIM unit. The fun continues with the movie Grease this Friday, July 15th, and then we got Spider-Man No Way Home on Friday, July 29th. Bring your own picnic or enjoy a dinner at a nearby restaurant. And that'll be this Friday. Okay, Council Member or Mayor Pro Tem Sonny Santinas.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Come and enjoy a Bellflower Street Fest concert by the country rock band Kelly Boys on July 21st, followed by an awesome 80s hits by the 80s All-Stars on Thursday, August 4th. The Street Fest will also host food vendors, craft business vendors, inflatable slides, and obstacle courses. All summer events and parking are free to the public. There is plenty of available parking in the new parking structure on Bellflower Boulevard and Main Street. Both summer events start at 6:30 p.m. Charges for the food and vendor pricing will vary. Movie and concert attendees are encouraged to bring their own lawn chairs, but no alcohol will be allowed. For more information, please call 562-804-1424 extension 2261 or visit the city's website at www.bellflower.org. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Dan Coops.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. LA County Library's annual Lunch at the Library program is providing free summer meals to kids and teens 18 and under. Meals are available for pickup on a first-come, first-served basis at select libraries. Our Brackensack Library has a schedule that goes like this. It's Tuesday through Friday from 12 to 1, which will continue through August the 5th. For more information, please visit www.lacountylibrary.org. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Coops. Councilmember Raymond Hamada.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Bellflower Chamber of Commerce invites businesses, service clubs, and the community to join their monthly morning mingle, which will take place Tuesday, July 26th from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. It's a very popular event. Sometimes there's standing room only, so get there on time. So for more information, please call the Bellflower Chamber of Commerce at 562-867-1744. All right? Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councilmember Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. The Southeast Los Angeles County Workforce Development Board is hosting a regional job fair at the Artesia Park Community Center, located at 18750 Clarkdale Avenue in the city of Artesia on Wednesday, July 27th, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. For more information, please call 562-484-5012. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Sanchez. Next, I would like to recognize a city employee that has spent 34 years serving the city of Bellflower, Dolores Barenti. Would you please, my colleagues, please join myself and Dolores on the presentation riser over here to my right? Right in the mirror. Front and center. Thank you. I'm going to say some brief words for Dolores. Has been here the last 34 years. Dolores has dedicated the last 34 years serving the Bellflower community from March 18th, 88 through July 1st, 2022. Dolores has served in many roles for the Parks Department of Parks and Recreation and assisting with programs and events with them. For the past several decades, one of Dolores' duties was serving as a bus driver for the Parks and Recreation Department's programs and excursions. Most notably, though, Dolores' legacy will always be the investment she made professionally and personally in the city's special needs community. She has led all recreation therapy programming for many years, including coaching for the Special Olympics organization. Her dedication and providing memorable experiences in caring for the needs of these participants is something Bellflower will always be grateful for. Dolores, for the Bellflower City Council thanks you and wishes you outstanding service to the city. We wish you well, and I would like to give you this plaque of Certificate of Achievement for the last 34 years. That's all right. I don't need no more. Got you to get it? Well, am I good? And we've all known Dolores for quite some time, and she is special here with what she is, as you all know. And with that, we're going to make her say a few words for this audience. You're going to get the whole, you here, I'll hold it. You hold it. Just say hi.
Hi.
It's okay, Dolores.
It's truly been an honor serving the city and you guys. And God bless you all.
All right.
This lady deserves a standing
Yeah. Lynn. That's okay. 34 years, you earned it. Yeah, if anybody wants to leave, now's the time. Or you're welcome to stay and watch the rest of the show.
Well, that ought to do it. Well, I think there's other people that want to sit down and probably want to bitch about their trash bill or something.
Bye. Yeah, somewhat. Okay, you want to go? Okay, now we're going to move on to our next presentation by City Net with the homeless survey. Next, we have the Executive Vice President of CityNet, Matt Bates, to provide a presentation on the 2022 homeless count in the city of Bellflower. Matt, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council for the time this evening to talk about the homeless census. As was mentioned, I'm Matt Bates. I'm the Executive Vice President of CityNet. I also have with me Paulette Flores-Holm and Molly Shaner from our census team. And they work tirelessly to not only put together these documents that we're going to look at tonight, but also to implement the event. So what we're going to, with the agenda for my presentation, we're going to talk about the 2022 homeless census in Bellflower. But because CityNet has also done homeless censuses in 2019 and 2020, we've also prepared some data comparisons for the 3 years so that we can look at some of the trends. Now we've submitted to city staff a full report. And I'm not going to go through the entire report. That's, 50 pages of charts and graphs and data, and there's a lot of important information in there. But what I've done in this presentation is just pull out some of the things that seem particularly noteworthy to me for consideration from the 2022 census and also in comparison to 19 and 20. And then also just things that kind of stand out to me. CityNet, in addition to being contracted here in Bellflower to do street outreach and engagement and that kind of work all across Southern California, we've done a lot of these homeless censuses. Overall, we've done now, since 2016, we've done 44 of these kinds of censuses, some of them including the county point-in-time count for Orange County on 2 occasions. And so we've looked at, in total, like 48 different cities. So if there are things, at this point now, if there are things that stand out to us, I can point those out and we can talk about them. And then at the end of the presentation, I've got room for Q&A. So if you've got any questions, I'm happy to answer them to the best of my ability. So just as a review, the goals of a census is to identify a baseline number of individuals. And in addition to the number, to determine the demographic, assets, challenges, and other special characteristics. So here in Bellflower, LA County does a point-in-time count every year. What we do as a census is different in that it's considered a survey-based count. And so the goal for us is to go out and to survey every homeless neighbor experiencing homelessness in the city and to conduct an interview so that we can gather that demographic information in addition to coming up with a number. In 2022, we went out in April 19 in the early morning and in April 21st in the late evening to gather that data. So we worked with the city ahead of time to map out the city, to create maps, and then to deploy teams that would go out into the field to collect the information, interview the homeless neighbors themselves. For looking at the 2022 census first, and then we'll, after the 2022, we'll transition into some of the comparisons. So the total number of unsheltered count that we identified was 75. In terms of geographic spread, we used, as we have in the past, a geospatial technology of on phones, and so that every interview that we conducted, we could drop a pin to locate and create this kind of a geographic spread. The two things that I would point out here is that some of those dots overlap, and so that, if we were to be able to have the technology to zoom in, you would see all 75, but if you counted those, it might not add up to 75 just because sometimes they're layered on top of each other. The other thing that really stands out to me is that you've got a pretty even geographic spread across the city of Bellflower. Again, looking at over 40 of these cities now, one city that comes to mind, which is much different, is a city like Newport Beach in Orange County. In Newport Beach, they've got their homeless geography is really centered around the pier down by the beach, and then the airport in the northwest part of the city. So they've got kind of two hot spots. And so if you looked at a map of Newport Beach, you would see all of the dots clustered around those two areas because they've got large encampments. What this suggests to me here is that you've got a more transient homeless population in the sense that it's spread out across the city, and so it's people that are moving around. They're not clustered into large encampments where that's where they live and that's where they're staying, and that's where they're going to be. If we were to go out today, tomorrow, next week, you have some of those in the city. Some of those people that are, they're tied to a geographic location, but for the most part, it's spread across the city, which suggests to us that when we see this, it suggests that you've got a migratory population of homelessness. In terms of a composite, which every homeless person is unique and every homeless story is unique, but viewed as a composite taking all of the data from 2022, the typical unsheltered homeless individual in Bellflower identifies as a Hispanic or Latino male between the ages of 35 and 44 who's chronically homeless and sleeps in Bellflower. Another thing that stood out to us is that you've got a population that is, for the most part, strongly desiring of resources. So the one on the left is case management. The dark blue at the bottom is not interested in case management. That's only 11%. Then you've got 81% that answered that question yes, that they'd be interested in case management services, and 7.3 that don't know at the top. Again, comparing this to other places, normally that number is around, in LA County, it's closer to 40-50%. Overall, we would see somewhere around 65% interested in case management. Same thing with the shelter. It's kind of split down the middle there, interested in going to shelter, half and half. But compared to LA County cities, this is actually a higher number than what we're accustomed to seeing. So when we see this, it's usually indicates that agencies of the city, law enforcement, nonprofit organizations, city staff have been in communication with homeless neighbors to the degree that they've established some sense of trust. And so if they come along and say, would you be interested in services, there's a willingness to dialogue about what that looks like, and a willingness to accept. So we look at both of these actually as very encouraging signs, just based on what these are questions that we ask in virtually every census that we do, and these numbers are very strong. So those are just some of the things. Again, we've got the full report, the full data report for the 2022 census, but I want to transition and look at some of the comparison from 19, 20, and 22. So the first thing that you're probably interested in is the overall homeless number, the unsheltered count. And I mentioned that in 2022, which is on the far right, the number was 75. That's actually up a little bit from 2020, so 60 to 75 is one way to look at the data. The way that I prefer to look at the data, and I think would suggest to you is the better way to look at it is look include 2019 because there was a big drop in 2019 to 2020. Of course, there was some significant interventions there. The opening of the shelter here in Bellflower was the big one. But that dropped the number way down, and then the rise is not as significant. So the way we would look at it is, a big reduction in the overall number, and then more or less holding steady. A slight increase, but still overall a 56.4 decrease from 2019 to 2022. So that's, again, we look at that as very encouraging. And again, that's probably the most dramatic drop that we've seen in any of the 44 censuses that we've done, in any of the cities that we've done. To be able to drop the number down and then to maintain that lower number is really significant. And our staff actually who do the data preparation and prepare these charts and graphs, this is so unusual that they had to look at this twice. They wanted to make sure that there was no error because they're not used to seeing that kind of a downward trend. Most cities that are doing well in Southern California are kind of holding steady. You would see kind of a straight line. And then other cities that are not doing so well, you'd see kind of an increase and a line going up from those 3 years. So kind of a lot to think about, a lot to discuss, but that's the first thing we would look at. In terms of the geographic spread, we overlaid, I know this is difficult to see because it's so small, but we overlaid the 3 years with red dots, light blue dots, dark blue dots. And essentially what we saw is more or less the same, that this sort of a geographic spread across the city, aligning with the main thoroughfares that go through the city, on the streets that go through the cities. Not a real strong, large encampments that have been established. The next slide here is we looked at participation in multiple censuses. So since we've done it 3 times, these numbers here are only for those that we had first name, last name, and date of birth, so that we could compare and make sure that we were looking at the same people from 2019, 2020, and 22. So the way to read this is that in 2019, there were 96 people. So I'm working from the left to the right here. In 2019, there were 96 people that only appeared in the 2019 census. We did not encounter them. Or if we did encounter them, they didn't give us their first name, last name, date of birth, so we couldn't verify that it was the same person. Now, there were 5 people that, and that's that 5 right in the center, top of your screen. There were 5 people that we encountered in 2019 and 2020. And then there were 3 people that we encountered in 2019, 2020, and 2022. And then if you look at the 9, which is on kind of the bottom, sort of the left in the middle, there were 9 people that that appeared in both the 2019 and the 2022 census. So the things I would say about this is that, generally when we present this kind of a graph to audiences in the past, people are surprised that the overlap is lower than what they expected. I don't know what you expected, but generally that's what people say. Is they say, "Wow, there's fewer. We would expect a higher number of consistent homeless people over time." And this is actually more like what we see when we do these. Is that there's a big turnover with homelessness, and so that's because you have a small group of chronic homeless people that have been homeless in Bellflower probably since before 2019, and they're homeless today. And unless there's significant interventions, they're going to remain homeless. They're what are considered by HUD chronically homeless, and that's generally a very small percentage of the overall homeless population. You've got a much larger group that is managing their housing, and they're kind of falling in and out of housing. These are people that are impoverished. What they're earning in wages and is very close to what they're needing to pay for rent. It's a much high, I think HUD establishes that a goal of 33% of what your earnings should go towards rent. These are people that maybe 75, 85, 90% of what they're earning is going towards rent. And so it makes them very vulnerable. And when they fall out of their housing, maybe they can stay with family or friends a little bit, and they're trying to patch it together, but they can fall into homelessness. So I just want to encourage us to think of homelessness as being transitory in 2 ways. One is that people move around the city and between cities. So there's a migratory, that's a reality. But also there's transitioning from in and out of housing. And so you've got people that may be homeless 1 or 2 weeks a year, and we just happen to encounter them during the time of the census. Vice versa, you have people that maybe they were not homeless in 2019. They were housed when we did the census, and then in 2020, they happened to have fallen out of housing, and we dealt with them then, or we counted them then, and then by 2022 they resolved it. So that's the other thing, is to think about not just your homeless population, but the larger group of people that are falling into homelessness and out of homelessness. Now, at the city staff, Joel had a good suggestion, which is, he asked the question, well, how does the Bellflower number of 75 from 22 on a per capita basis compare to other cities that we've done? And actually, the story is really good here. I know it's a little bit small, but you'll see at the very bottom is Lake Forest, and then right above Lake Forest is Bellflower. And so what this chart is we looked at the percentage of the unsheltered population compared to the overall population of the city as a percentage. So the Bellflower number is actually 0.1%. So not 1%, but 0.1% is the Bellflower number right at the bottom. Lake Forest has a little bit smaller percentage of their overall population, which is homeless. But we just took 18 cities, and I didn't cherry pick the ones that would make this chart look most favorable. I just took the first 18 that our team took the first 18 that we could find. And we could go back and do all 44 teams. And my sense is that, again, Bellflower would be on the positive end of the scale, meaning fewer of your overall population are homeless relative to other cities. And these cities are in Orange County and LA County, Riverside County, Santa Barbara County. And we took some big cities, we took some small cities, and just plotted out the percentage of the population that is unsheltered. So again, that's a very favorable number for Bellflower. In terms of our recommendations and what we see from this 2022 report, again, looking at it in the context of 2019 and 2020, I think, from my perspective, I'm confident in saying that, investments yield results. And so it's important to think holistically about the investments that the city of Bellflower has made, including, the Sheriff's Department, homelessness training focus. I know that most law enforcement really all across the state, because homelessness continues to be such a big challenge, have invested lots of time in training and focus for their officers to be better at interfacing with homelessness. Law enforcement gets the calls, and so, if it's 2 a.m, the nonprofits like mine, we're all closed, the churches are closed, the city staff is not available. Who's available? It's law enforcement. And so law enforcement has done a great job overall. Street outreach engagement, to connect people to services, to build relationships with homeless neighbors is important. The shelter here in Bellflower was a game changer from our perspective. And then also investments from COVID-19. That's the other thing to overlay on all of this data, which is that, all these things are taking place in the midst of an unprecedented global pandemic, which could have gone differently. For the most part, here in Bellflower and across Southern California, across the state really, COVID-19 has, our worst fears were not realized relative to homelessness. The fear, of course, is someone being unsheltered, is not able to socially distance and isolate at home and quarantine if they catch COVID. And they're also a medically fragile population, so the worry was that it would spread and that it would lead to lots of negative consequences from a health perspective. And so the state, the federal government, local governments have partnered together, and there's been lots of investments that have, for the most part, kept people safe and also created housing opportunities. The other thing we would suggest, again, given the migratory nature of homelessness, is just encourage the city to continue to seek out regional partnerships with your neighboring cities. There's a lot of data in the report about community ties. And so you'll see, for the most part, 75% of homeless people, they've either got strong ties to the community that they're in when they're encountered homelessness, or the city next door, and you've got a few neighboring cities, but 1 or 2 cities, they're from the region. You do have some people that are from far away, but for the most part, you've got people that are local. And so here, I think the city of Bellflower, with the investments that you've made, I think it's reasonable to be concerned about not wanting to have people come to Bellflower seeking services, but making sure that your neighboring cities throughout the region are addressing homelessness of their homeless people, so that everybody's doing their part and everybody's doing their share. And then again, and of course, the long-term need here is housing. And so anything that the city could do to advocate for more and more affordable housing just across the board is going to ultimately provide the release valve for homelessness. So with that, we just want to conclude before I get to the Q&A by thanking the City of Bellflower, the Sheriff's Department here in LA for their help in conducting the census, and also the homeless neighbors themselves, the dozens of homeless neighbors who voluntarily participated. It's worth noting that participation is voluntary, so we can't compel anyone to talk to us. And so all the data that we collected is because individuals are interested in ultimately sharing data so that they can ideally receive care, which we hope would end their homelessness. So we're so grateful for the homeless individuals that agreed to participate. And with that, I will conclude my report and take any questions that you all may have, either about the presentation that I've made or the larger report that you might have noted.
Thank you, Mr. Bates. That was a great presentation. Any questions?
Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bates, for the presentation. I'm really pleased that we're able to maintain the number of homeless individuals in the city of Bellflower. But as far as I'm concerned, our goal is to bring it to zero. I know it's a tall order, but that's always should be our goal. And I'm really glad that the numbers stayed down, 60 to 75 between 2020 and 2022. That's a good sign, as you pointed out. I think the city's investment is really paying off. So I just have a couple of questions. In the first slide, you mentioned about the typical homeless person is 34 to 45 years old, something like that. And what really struck me attention is he sleeps in Bellflower. The very last section, he sleeps in Bellflower. So in your census, what do they do during the day? Are they working in another city? Are they studying? Are they doing something else outside of Bellflower?
Yeah, it's a good question. And the reason that we put sleeps in Bellflower is that we asked a number of questions that I would put under the category of community ties. So we asked, where did you go to high school or middle school? Like the last schooling that you had, what city was that in? We asked, what is your city of last permanent address? And so we're just trying to get at, there's community ties is a tricky one because there's no national standard that establishes community ties and says, okay, if a homeless person, if this, and this is true, then they are the responsibility of Bellflower. And if those things aren't true, then they're the responsibility of some other city. There's no national standard that's been established by HUD or any other agency. So what we try to do is gather as much information as we can. So sleeps in Bellflower, it really runs the gamut. Some sleep in Bellflower and they spend all their time in Bellflower. Some have some of the income questions that we asked show that people have jobs, might be part-time jobs, and so sometimes people are out of Bellflower for their work, or to take care of their medical care, their legal issues, and also resolving their homelessness. So, our hope as an outreach and engagement agency is for our teams to make referrals into the shelter here in Bellflower, and then, knowing that there's some clientele that we're going to have to case manage from the streets into housing. And that is a long process with lots of paperwork and lots of visits. You need to have your homelessness needs to be verified. Your disability needs to be verified if you have a disability. And so you need identification. So it's trips to the DMV, it's trips to the doctor, it's trips to other specialists that might be able to complete paperwork and documentation. So there's a variety of things that there's a variety of reasons that people might move around. But we asked, which city do you sleep in? Because some of the people, we wanted to look at it the other way. some of the people that we encountered as homelessness in Bellflower told us that they slept in other cities. You see what I'm saying? So we asked, where did you sleep? And then we cataloged the city. And so there were some people that were homeless for the day in Bellflower, but they told us that they normally sleep in some other city. So they were here, they were the flip side. They normally sleep in another city, but they were here in Bellflower either for work or for, for other business that they were taking care of during the day.
So when you did the homeless count, I remember that you did it 2 different times, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. So they were not sleeping at that time.
Right. Our goal is to kind of catch them right as they're getting up for the day
Okay.
and moving around for the day, and then also right as they're getting ready to go to bed for the night.
So how does your approach compare to, let's say, LASA? When LASA does their homeless count, they usually do it in the evening.
Right.
Or early morning, around 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning. Because I think their goal is, I used to work in Skid Row, so
Right.
I've done that. So so their goal is basically to catch them while they're sleeping, so to speak, so that they know exactly where the count is.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm trying to understand your methodology compared to LASA's methodology in terms of getting an accurate homeless count.
So, maybe the difference is that one key difference is that we do a survey-based count. So we want to engage in a conversation with as many people as we can. LASA, has responsibility for the entire county of Los Angeles, the largest county in the country, I think by geography and by population, if I'm not mistaken. But if not, it's up in the top. So they've just got a huge, 88 cities in LA County. So they've got a huge task, and so they employ a different methodology where they use statistical sampling, and so they'll count, do it like a point and count, and so if someone's asleep, then it's not as it fits within their methodology, because then they'll do a certain number of interviews, and then they'll extrapolate from there based on city population and poverty. And use the methodology of statistical sampling. We don't use any sampling in Bellflower. So for us, all 75 that we counted are people that we, stood in front of and counted. We didn't count a smaller number and then based on your population, extrapolate from there. So we do want to engage in conversations with the people, because we're trying to gather not only a number that is accurate, but also the demographic information that we're interested in and that can help the city make informed choices on interventions. And then the other thing, to be fair to LASA, they're hemmed in. They've got this huge territory to cover, and then HUD gives them 10 days, the last 10 days in January, that they've got to collect all of that data. So we can spend more time relative, per capita in a city like Bellflower. We can send more teams out, and we can go twice. To really cover the entire geography of your city in a way that LASA is not going to be able to, because they've got 87 other cities and a lot of other territory to cover and a lot less time to be able to do it.
Well, just like you pointed out, your survey, your census, basically you're more engaged. In the case of LASA, they just check the boxes. That's all they do. The other question I have is on the chart where you said the overlap between 2019, 2020, 2022, there's 3 individuals, if I'm interpreting correctly. So we have 3 individuals that are unsheltered in 2019 and 20 and 22, correct? Can I make a special request? Can we do something about that?
Yeah, we were talking about that as a team.
In terms of special outreach, because
Yeah,
it
yeah.
really pains me to see that number.
Well, and also the 9. So the of the particular interest to us here would be the 3 in the middle, and then the 9
Right.
that existed
Especially the
between
3.
2019 and 2022.
Right.
Because these are longer-term cases.
If you can do something about it, I would really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And then in your comparison about the different cities, maybe in the next report, or maybe you can send a special report. I really want to compare our city with our neighboring cities like Norwalk, Cerritos, Paramount, and Lakewood, if you can, and Downey, our neighboring cities. That will be appreciated.
We pulled these, kind of on, we did these today, so we turned this around really quickly. And these are ones that, from a methodology standpoint, is comparing apples to apples, because CityNet did a survey-based count in each of these other cities. We can do that. The data that we would get for those other surrounding cities, because we've not done censuses in those cities, would be the LASA data from the point-in-time count. And I'm not sure, but I don't think that LASA has released the data yet from the January point-in-time count.
Yeah, if you can, I think
But when
that's
that
going to be very
comes,
helpful.
yeah, we can look at that and show you that comparison.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Hamada?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hey, Matt, how you doing? Good. Nice to see you again. Again, thank you for the work, as always. So you had mentioned that our, homeless neighbors are, migratory, and the one slide that showed the typical says, as the Mayor Pro Tem says, sleeps in Bellflower, but so typically means maybe the majority of them, or did you really come up with a number that really slept in town, or?
Yeah, we did come up with a number, and it's in the full
report.
2022 report.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that?
Let me see if I can
just,
find
just I was just curious.
Let's see. So in the Appendix 1, if just for the record, is where we have all the tables for all the questions. So what we did was on page 33, we looked at where respondent usually sleeps. We had 55 people that answered that question. 47 of those 55, 85.5% said Bellflower.
Oh, okay.
There was one for Lakewood, 2 for Long Beach, 2 for Paramount, 1 for another LA city, and 1 for a city outside of Los Angeles.
Right, so-
in terms
so
of
most are
where
in
they
Bellflower,
answered.
so-
Yeah, so 85% or 86%
Yeah.
if you round up.
So when you did your survey, when you encountered somebody who responded that they had background in Bellflower, they may have lived here before, went to school, et cetera, during that time, did you also offer them the possibility of the shelter if there was space available? Was that part of the
Yeah.
work at that time?
It's a good question. So it's not primarily an outreach and engagement event. Our Bellflower outreach and engagement staff, the ones that normally do outreach and engagement in Bellflower, we're part of the team. And so if we identify areas, situations that are urgent, thankfully we didn't encounter any unaccompanied minors, as an example, in Bellflower. But if we do that, we kind of stop everything and try and resolve those situations if there's some kind of an emergency.
No,
Recognizing that it is a data collection event, and the primary goal
sure.
is
No,
to
that's
collect the data and move on.
understandable. But sometimes there is that.
Sometimes,
emergency.
yeah, sometimes we
I just
do.
wanted to make sure that
Yep.
if somebody really needed it, then and if they could have received it sooner than later, of course, then,
Right.
then of course. Both Councilman Sanchez and I serve on the homeless shelter subcommittee, and I believe this community is very proud of what the city, again, boldly did a number of years ago to take that step forward to again have that shelter here. It's filled
Yep.
up to nearly to the max daily, and it's definitely something that served its purpose. And when the other question, I had one more question. I think the Mayor Pro Tem got it, so I'll leave it at
Well,
that.
I do
'Cause
want
he covered it as he said, "Oh yeah, mentally."
I do want to comment on the shelter because I'm glad you
Yeah.
brought that up. The the city should be proud of that shelter. And not only the shelter, but the operator and the way that it's operated is a quality shelter. And I think that slide where half the people aren't interested in shelter. We find that in LA County in particular, for a lot of homeless neighbors, like their mental picture of a shelter is something maybe that you find on Skid Row, like that lingers on. And I think all of us in the audience, if I say Skid Row, Los Angeles, a picture comes to mind, and it's not a picture that necessarily you'd want to go live there, So part of our role at Outreach and Engagement is to help socialize the idea of like this is a different model. It's operated differently. It looks different. It feels different. Your experience will be different and will be better than what maybe what you have in your mind as a LA County shelter. In other counties that are relatively newer to homelessness because it hasn't impacted them, we don't find that degree of resistance because people don't have those negative sort of stereotypes of what a shelter is to overcome. So I think there's some additional work to be done in terms of, for those that are that when you ask them the question, are you willing to go to shelter? They say, no. Then to have a further conversation. Well, what do you think, what do you think the shelter is? Have you been to the Bellflower shelter? Have you seen it? Have you talked to anybody who's stayed there? Have you talked to someone who's successfully moved on from that shelter? Or do you have in your mind a picture that's not accurate to what is really being offered to you?
Okay, very good. Thank you, Matt. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Sanchez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to kind of piggyback off of that on the shelter, I think one of the things that makes our shelter a little bit different and more accessible is that it allows for pets. That's the number one thing I think that you hear usually why they don't want to use shelters. But then, so just to jump in real quick, I have a couple of questions. The first one, does this census include the Caltrans properties?
Yeah, so we would include any property, public and private, that exists within the city boundaries of Bellflower.
Very good. And then during the census, were any families or minors located?
Okay, so let me be accurate on this. When I looked at it earlier, there were, as I mentioned, no unaccompanied minors. And let me see if I can find the family data. So let me, I don't have that. Let me get that. I'll get back to you on that one.
Oh, perfect. And I would ask a similar favor as Mayor Pro Tem Sonny Santinez is to let's make sure that we provide extra attention to those families if there are families in this position. And then lastly, are you during your census trying to take into account how many or individuals actually already have Section 8 vouchers but just can't find housing?
Yeah, that's a good question,
well?
and that is an issue, as you know, among homelessness. We did not ask that question in particular, but that is one from an outreach and engagement standpoint. When our outreach and engagement teams go out, that is something that they look at, because then the question is really housing navigation services are what's needed rather than going into the shelter.
Perfect. Well, if we can add that into the future census, just so that we have that kind of a data that we can advocate to our county soups and everyone else regarding the need for more housing on that in that specific element.
Right.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilmember Coops?
Yes, sir. I would, my mic here. Do our homeless neighbors understand and know what the geographic boundaries of Bellflower are? Do they truly know if they're in Lakewood, Bellflower, or Downey? Because there's not a map that shows where we start and stop, but I'm sure are they aware of where they are at?
I would say for the most part, yes. And I would say, again, for the most part, homeless neighbors are more knowledgeable and sophisticated on that particular question than the general public. And in part because, different cities handle homelessness differently. Different law enforcement agencies handle it differently. And so, and also the other part of that is that any area where there's jurisdictional confusion, like a freeway on-ramp or off-ramp, or a Caltrans property, or a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers or railroad property, where it's not sure who's going to intervene, homeless neighbors invariably find those areas. So my experience is that they're more knowledgeable than the general public when it comes to that question.
The city of Bellflower has engaged CityNet, and we have Kingdom Causes Bellflower, and we have Mercy House running the shelter. And I like to think that all of you are communicating together to try to work in the right direction. Is that what's happening?
Correct. Yes.
So when you sit down and look at the situation as it's been for the last 3 years, will there be a point in time, or maybe it's already occurred, that you would say to the city, we need more beds in the shelter? Because we're at max,
Right.
I mean, have we run against a wall where you cannot provide the service you're looking for because we have no place to house them? Or when will that occur? Or how do you have that discussion?
I think coming out of COVID, we're ready to have that kind of, to participate in that communal discussion. You know, it's not just a CityNet perspective or one of those other agencies, or the city, but to have that conversation. COVID really threw a kink into the system because shelters very often operated at lower than their max capacity because they needed to create 6 feet distance between people, and so that's not how they were designed. And then also shelters have had staffing shortages as staff have contracted COVID, and that has impacted across the system. Knock on wood, we're coming to a point where we can operate the shelter. We collectively can operate the shelter here in Bellflower at full capacity, and then that'll give us a better sense of how many additional beds that we need. In general, as a service provider, in my heart, the answer is always yes to that. I always want to see more beds. I always want to see more shelters. I want to see more options for people because I know that if you have more options, you can get more people off the street. But to do it strategically and to do it, in a fiscally responsible way, and in a way that includes the regional partners, so that you're not inadvertently creating an influx of people from other areas because other areas are not addressing homelessness on their own.
No one else has stepped up the plate like Bellflower has in our neighboring communities.
Well, and the other thing is the county shelter, you've got the county that overlays and has funding and services. And so, but county shelters are not always convenient to this particular cities within the county. As an example, like this is an extreme example, but it is a true example. We work in the city of Whittier. Before Whittier before Salvation Army opened a shelter in Whittier, the city was struggling with where they could make referrals, and the county shelter was actually in Lancaster.
So, and that we'd have the same situation if we didn't have a shelter of our own.
Right.
But what I don't want to happen is we've got all these resources like CityNet, like Kingdom Causes, like Mercy House, and we are at a point where capacity has been fulfilled. And so the operations that you're offering are stagnant because we don't have a place where we can offer to take them, to use them, to help get them on their feet. And when do we evaluate that? Or I'm sure, City of Bellflower is one of the first cities in LA County that you engaged with. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true for us. Yeah.
For us. I mean, so when Brad came in here and made the presentation, he says, if Bellflower works with us, we will be the first LA city to do so.
Yep.
And so when you put up the chart there, that's probably entirely, I can't read it from here, but it's all Orange County cities, correct?
No, there's a mixture of LA County cities, Riverside County, and Santa Barbara.
So are you now engaged in other cities in LA County beyond Bellflower?
Yes.
Okay, so we were just the first.
But I think that's probably true for Mercy House too. One of the first there, and to your point,
it's an Orange County model that we brought in there because we had nothing to lean on from LA County.
And to your point, my understanding is that the existing Bellflower shelters, post-COVID, they're operating at full capacity and they're close to capacity. And then what we show on this data is that we've got, additional, I don't know what it was, 20, 30 people who said yes, they would go to shelter.
Well, that's what I'm looking at. And then when Sonny says, hey, I need those 3 worked on, and you've got a few here, we need to provide a place for them to be.
Mr. Mayor, we do get daily reports on the shelter, and it's running, over the past year, it's been running about 86% full, roughly, from day to day. Some fuller than others and others less, but it's not quite filled, but it's getting close.
And I know the shelter's large enough, or the building's large enough, that we could advance that if we wanted to, couldn't we?
We could.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. You don't have to put the slide up, but the slide that went from 60 to 75 was the count from 2020 to 22, along with the circle slide with the numbers of the 9 number, the 3 number. We all thought it was bad. To me, 20 to 22, that's when, during the pandemic, and that's when the law enforcement kind of changed and incarcerations changed. Would it be somewhat reasonable to say the worst of the homeless would be incarcerated at more times than not and that's why the count went from 60 to 75. Is that plausible?
I think that's, I think you could throw that in the mix.
As a mix or something like that, yeah?
Yeah, I don't know. I think my sense is it's probably a combination of factors, including COVID. But
we know law enforcement's a lot.
Sure.
We're struggling with the law enforcement and the bad actors, and law enforcement would have bad actors and take upon its own if somebody needed psychiatric help or, and we know the courts, if they get arrested, the courts just let them out, so they're not going anywhere. And one reason we have the homeless shelter is to help people to get to the shelter. And if you stay in Bellflower, it was always billed to stay in Bellflower, you got to another choice. You're going to have to go the route of the law enforcement. And that's how we got here, and that's how we got here with Judge Carter back in the day. And I know you're aware of that, and made the agreement to get this to start cleaning up our public areas with the homeless neighbors, so to speak, on our public sidewalks and in the nooks and crannies and whatnot. But seeing the report, that's kind of my analogy. That's kind of the way I am wired. But you have a wonderful report, Mr. Bates, and just wish I could see it better. But you're not the only report that we have on a PowerPoint that's like that. I think we're going to have to make some comments because we're not, I can't see it from here. I don't know what you guys, you probably can't see it either, right? The young guy with the young eyes can't see it.
We've shared the PowerPoint with the city,
Yeah,
so they can
right.
Forward that on to you.
But anyway, thank you. Have a wonderful night, and
Mr.
great
Mayor,
presentation.
I'm sorry, just one quick one for Matt still.
Okay.
Hey, Matt, of the number, the 75 veterans.
Oh, good question.
And that'll be it.
So that question, we had 55 answered that question, and 7 were U.S. military veterans, the 12.7%.
Still, all right. All right. Sad to hear, but yes, I
Yeah.
know that's reality. All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Matt.
And if they're the 44-year-olds, they're not the Vietnam vets.
No, they're not.
Yeah. Mhm. Okay. All right, item 10 on the agenda is public comments. Mr. Stewart.
This is the time set aside for the public to address the city council on matters not listed on the agenda. Anyone wishing to address the city council should come to the podium, be recognized by the mayor, and state your name for the record. If you wish to address the city council on an agenda item, you may do so at the time by approaching the podium as we review that particular item. You'll be given 3 minutes to address the city council.
Thank you. Anybody wishing to come to the podium and talk about anything they wish for the allotment of 3 minutes of stuff that is not on the agenda. So if you come, you won't be talking about on the agenda. You'll have that time later. Now's the time. Just come up, state your name, sign in, please.
Hello, my name is Sunil Narsai. I received a letter about refuge collection.
That'll be on the agenda. That'll be another item on the agenda tonight. You'll be
Oh.
able to speak during that public hearing.
Oh, so not now?
Not now, yeah.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, City Council. My name is Ferry Williams. I'm a resident of Bellflower Senior Apartments. On my right and my left are residents of Bellflower Senior Apartments. We have several problems that we have addressed our management, and we're not getting no assistance. We have break-ins, we have no security, we have concrete that's coming up. We have a lot of problems that need to be taken care of. Cars breaking into apartments, homeless people coming, sleeping in our laundry rooms. And we're not getting no help and no assistance at all from our management.
What's the location of your facility?
Yeah, 9922 Flora Vista.
And have you been reporting all these problems to the sheriff department?
Yes, sir, we have had several, I've been there 12 years. We've had several police coming in, crime watch and all that. We're not getting no assistance at all. and it's very unsafe for us, and that's our home for a lot of us, and we need help really bad.
And you're the spokesman for the.
Well, there's several other ones that
Okay,
would
well,
like to
you
speak
just
to.
came here. What I wanted to do is have you talk to, our public safety director.
Is that Brian?
No, that would be Joel Hockman.
Oh,
Brian works for Joel.
okay, I talked to Brian already, so he knows. I spoke to him already.
Yeah. Joel's a little step up the ladder.
Yes, sir. Yes, I know, yes. But I talked to Brian.
But
We had a
he's
long
right over there.
conversation.
He's already acknowledged you, and if
Okay.
you want to,
Okay.
talk to him, and he'll get you.
All
see
right,
if
thank
there's
you very
anything
much.
else can be done. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Miss Williams.
Next to the city yard.
Anybody else wishing to?
It's a nice building.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members and staff. I'm Joan Davis. I live at Bellflower Terrace Senior Apartments, as the rest of the group does. Coincidentally, the report on homeless tonight, I was going to mention that we have 1, 2, or 3 of those, sleeping overnight in our building, and we've tried to effect some change with that, as she said. But this morning, we, a number of us, maybe most of the people here, tried to convene a meeting with management on issues that are very important to us on the quiet enjoyment of our properties. And the stimulus for that meeting was a notification that went out on Friday afternoon telling us to clear all of our balconies of plants by Monday morning, and there was no management to talk to. So we convened the meeting to try to say why. Some people have lived there 12, 14, 18 years nurturing their plants. I'm not going to debate on that. But so I would be interested in, and you referred us to Public Works. What can
Public safety,
Public
yeah,
safety.
yeah.
What can your city council and the mayor do for us on behalf of enlightening management to be more responsive to us?
It's pretty much a private property issue. It's a tenant versus landlord rights,
Okay.
and that's not codified. And get me if I'm wrong, Mr. Attorney, but it's more of a state level. Those laws are already written, but if you have a bad actor that's owns that you're paying rent to,
Right.
if they don't want to play ball, you can sue them, I guess. I don't know. I've never been in
Yeah.
that position. I feel for you.
Yeah. It's,
But it's the city can't go after private property other than just a code violation.
right. And we've had code enforcement over a number of times.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I think it's a tax credit property, which may or may not make any difference. But we're dealing with the management company, Wynn Management, who has properties all over the place. But
Yeah.
we'll work with Brian
Yeah.
or
With Joel.
Joel,
Joel, yeah.
yeah.
Brian, it sounds like Brian's been there a lot.
and so has Joe from code enforcement.
Brian
yeah.
is a very good employee, and he stays on top of it, but maybe he's met his match.
Okay. Thank
But
you for
I
your
will,
time.
if that is a fair, I heard fair housing come from the audience.
Yeah.
If that was money involved, I guess we could look into that and see if there's any, strings attached that we might have control over.
Okay. All right.
It's just
Thank
a
you
thought.
for your time.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and the councilman. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to present to you, and more importantly, your listening ear. My name is Minister Dunham, and I'm a resident of the Bellflower Terrace. One of the things that we are basically concerned about is that when they're speaking about health and safety, and the way they addressed us with plants, but if they're concerned about our health and safety, our surveillance cameras do not work. We've been having break-ins in our automobiles. We are senior citizens. This is, in most cases, our last rodeo. We're not going anywhere. And so, but we need a safe environment. And that's why we come into the city, because the city is providing us, has promised us, and you're in your position to make sure we have a safe environment. As also my colleagues also indicated, that by having a safe and healthy environment, when you have homeless people coming into our building and sleeping in our staircases or sleeping in our washrooms, if you're talking about health and safety, then address those issues. Also having a security guard, graveyard shift would be fine for us. Another thing, we don't move as quickly and as smoothly as we used to. So we're going underground, and we are coming in different types of evenings and days. If you have someone breaking into our vehicles, we cannot defend ourselves. So now you have someone that is beaten or someone that is murdered, because our management team doesn't look at us as, they look at us as tenants and not customers. We're customers. Another thing, last year we had Edison come in and shut down our power for over 14 to 16 hours. We have seniors that are on the devices that depends on their life. You know, so we must be able to speak. There's over 200 of us in there. And we are citizens, and we're just asking, please, with your listening ears and your position, to help us get this resolved. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Estelle Ezel. I'm another resident of Bellflower Terrace. I'm a retired traffic officer for the city of Los Angeles. It's 26 years. I have 8 years retirement next month.
Congratulations.
Along with the safety, it's the American Disability Act. We come from underground parking. I'm at 9924, which my building does not go underground. So I have to take the elevator or the stairs. I'm still in good health. I take the stairs. But you have to struggle with the door. We do not have automatic doors with a automatic open. You have to stick your key in the door, try to hold the door open. If you're carrying laundry, water, whatever, a grandchild, those doors need to be automated. We've talked to them over and over again. I've been living there 5.5 years, and in the 5.5 years I've been a resident, we've had 9 property managers. You talk to one manager, next month you got another manager. Month after that, it's another manager. They don't want to give rent receipts. So it's more than just our safety. I helped a citizen who literally fell out his wheelchair, stuck in between 2 cars. And I'm in the parking lot, no cameras, nothing. I just hear somebody, help, help. And I'm on defensive. I worked outside. The last 10 years of my career, I worked graveyard from Watts to Woodland Hills. So I've worked the entire city of LA. And I'm already on my P's and Q's, and I don't see nobody, and I just kept hearing a faint help, help. So I walked over to the side, I had to go in between the 2 cars, and this resident is literally on the ground out his wheelchair. No help from nobody. I tried to pick him up. I could not pick him up. So I get on my phone, I call, not even have my cell phone on me. Another neighbor was coming out the elevator. I'm like, call 911, please, please, call 911. They couldn't get into the gate. We have an automated gate to come into the parking structure. So it's a whole lot more problems than other than management just telling us we got to move our plants out. You can't have a rug, a mat in front of your door. We need an advocate for seniors. It is utterly ridiculous. It's pouring down rain. You carrying groceries. Their solution when the door first broke, they have a piece of wood screwed into the concrete. That doesn't keep the door open. It keeps the door from slamming up against the building, but it doesn't keep the door open. Over and over again. A few weeks ago, the front door on 9924 that lead to the street was broken. And it was broken from the inside. Who broke it? I don't know what. I was told management came, the maintenance guy, and picked up the handle and said it was an emergency. How is that not an emergency when anybody off the streets could walk into our building? And like they say, you have homeless guys in here. They could be in the trash room, laundry room, wherever. We had a tenant's son get stabbed in our building last year. Management never said anything to me, and I doubt if any other tenant.
Okay, your time's up.
To this date.
Okay.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. Okay. Next.
Gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Avelino Flores. This is Mr. Duran, Juan Duran, a good friend of mine. We're here today on 2 points. One, we're trying to get a set of drawings released that the city of Bellflower Building Department is hanging on to. They have 4 sets. All we're asking for is 1 back. Reason being is that I drew the drawings, original vellum. These original vellums no longer exist. The copy place that they had them, they got shredded. They don't exist anymore. In the good old days, you got back a set of drawings, one set, marked up set, that came back to you. It doesn't matter whether it's coming from Beverly Hills or the city of El Monte, you got one set back. So you had an actual copy in your hands. To this date, she refuses to even come to the counter. Now, doggone it, I was a plant checker for the city of Whittier for many years. I don't care who called me to the counter. It didn't matter if it was a contractor, homeowner, engineer, architect. I don't care if it was God. I came to that counter. I do not hide behind a door. I want to give credit to the planning department of Bellflower. That department over there is awesome. Clark, Rowena, doesn't matter who. When you call them to the counter, they come to the counter. I don't know how many times this gentleman here and myself have come to that counter, nobody comes up. Called her, no message returned, nothing. Email me, put it on your letterhead. I said, bull crap, give me a piece of paper, Brandon. I feel sorry for Brandon. That boy is a good boy. He does a lot. Here's the letter. I said, Brandon, give me a piece of paper. Dear Mrs. Roncorelli, whatever her name is, project 9634 Maplewood. At this time, we cannot find the original hand-drafted vellums for the addition and ADU. We are requesting one set be returned today so we can hire a draftsman to complete the plan check corrections. Why? Because I got mugged. I got mugged. So I can't draw the damn things. Your actions will help complete the project and a building permit can be issued. My name is Abelino V. Flores, a retired disabled Marine veteran. I have Mr. Duran with me right now here at the counter 7/7/2022. Your cooperation will help us complete Mr. Duran's project. You can provide one set of the 4 that you hold in your possession. Ah, man, my adrenaline is. That's why they fear Marines, I guess.
You're running out of time.
Originally, one set's all we asked. I voted for every one of you guys up there, except for Sonny, 4 times. All one set, guys.
Okay.
Hopefully we get it tomorrow.
All right.
Semper Fi.
So I guess we know why we're here like this, or?
No, I don't know. I mean, I would suggest to clarify this because there is copyright rights on some of those plans. We can't release them all according to state law. The best thing for Mr. Abelino
I
to
drew
do.
them. This is the owner.
Perfect. So do a public records request for the plans and we'll dig up what we have here. I don't know what this is about. I haven't heard this one before.
There's nothing about it, sir.
Well,
I'm also a licensed building inspector.
I understand. So I
Government
guess
says y'all hang on to one approved set. We're in the plant checking stage.
what I'm recommending you do here is the city clerk. Her name is Myra Chike. Send her an email tomorrow morning. Do a public records request for those plans, and we will do that.
There you go, Myra.
There you go. Fair enough.
my-
We'll respond accordingly.
Yeah, that's my original set. I have no more other copies. Rest of the stuff has already been shredded. I'm out, man. I'll see you at church, Sonny. Tell Father to
Okay.
pray for me.
Always well.
Thank you for your service.
And then he goes to church.
No, he's messing with Sonny.
I don't think he goes to church.
You guys want to go camping, man? I love to camp.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Quinn Boydnott, and I'm a resident at the Bellflower Senior Terrace Apartment. And we have a really bad issue with trash. We've gone to the manager, trash is laid out on the sidewalk, on the streets. People that are on scooters, walkers, wheelchairs can't get through. Now we're in the middle of the street and have to worry about traffic. I've gone to the manager a number of times about removing the clutter on the street, on the sidewalk, because I'm also in a scooter, and it makes it hard for me to get to and from where I need to go because of the trash, and I'm having to go into the street. We also have trash bins trash chutes in the apartments, and they're not getting emptied properly or on time, where the trash is overflowing, and now we're dealing with roaches. And we've brought this to their attention, and it just seems to be an issue that keeps arising over and over. Trash chute door was broken. It took them 3 weeks to fix it. And we're walking the hallways and having to kill these roaches. Not fair to us. You know, we're having to worry about, you know, they're talking about health and safety. That isn't healthy for us to be dealing with the roaches, the trash. And we've even called the city to come out, and they've inspected it. They've seen that the trash chute door was broken. And then the manager said, oh, well, we fixed it. I called the city the next day and said it's not fixed. They came in, took pictures, and saw that the trash did not get fixed. So, you know, that's an issue we're dealing with also, is furniture clutter on the front, on the sidewalks, that's making it hard for us to get around. So if the city could help us with where to go or where to get this taken care of, it would help us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it the same? Is it the same property we're talking about?
Yeah.
Bellflower?
Yes.
Okay.
The terrace.
Okay.
Uh-oh, the closer. The closer.
Good evening, Mayor, and all
Good
other
evening.
city councilmen. My name is Linda Bolton, and I reside here at the Bellflower Terrace Apartments. My main concern, and like they piggyback on the other ones, they mentioned that we have a lot of problems, and we do. Too many issues that are going on that hasn't been addressed. My main concern is they put out a notice about health and safety regarding plants that we have on the balcony. Okay, that's one issue. However, you're not speaking, and no one has told us about the ongoing criminal acts that have been taking place inside of the building. We have not been notified for our health and our safety on those issues that criminal issues that are coming up. So I want to know, who do we speak to? Because first of all, before you think of plants being out on the balcony, you should think of our health and our safety in a manner of alerting us and letting us know what's going on.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
I also lived at Bellflower Terrace too, and they charged all 180 units $100 for the cameras. And when the cops come, they break into your car, they look at the cameras and say, they're fake. They're not even real cameras. They collected $18,000 for them. Somebody put it in their pocket. They pocketed all the money. And these are all senior citizens. It's bad. I know.
Mayor, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I have a different topic that I wish to bring up, and it's Taco Nazos. What a death trap. Nothing's being done. I've taken pictures where you've got traffic. You got 2 lanes going each direction, plus curb parking. You lost the curb parking, you lost the 1 lane, now you got a bus coming down through, and he's got to go out into the yellow lines to get around it. Now, either they should have the restaurant open or the drive-through, one of the two. There is insufficient parking in the beginning on that property. Whoever put that into place is about dumb as a box of rocks, because you don't have on-site parking for the employees to begin with in either situation. But this is a death trap as it is right now. I've got pictures here showing the traffic jam, and sooner or later, somebody's going to get hurt. Now, Bellflower's aware of it, and I could be that party's best witness unless something is done. It's time to either get rid of the conditional use permit move them out of there, close one of the facilities down or something, or at least take that car wash in back of it that's been sitting idle and rotting away for the last 15 years I know of, and knock it down and create some parking. Now, I know it belongs to some owner, but I think the city needs to step forward on it. Then the other issue I want to bring up is these carts running around selling food out of them. They're all a health hazard. None of them meet the health department standards when you go picking food out of it. And to really show who's doing it, you've got these characters running around chasing the street sweeper and stuff, passing tickets out. These so-called, what I call wannabe cops, they're buying it off the darn vendors. So that really sets a good example. Your own staff. It's sickening, but something needs to be done with these carts. Plus, you're putting businesses out of business. How can a guy with a legitimate restaurant make a business when he can't when he's got to compete against a cart that's a bunch of illegal nonsense going down through? Something needs to step up. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Yes. Mr. Coops?
All right, so how many here are tenants of the, okay, but that's part of the whole place. All right, so here's the deal. Our city is divided into districts, and my district is where you live. So I'm going to take responsibility, okay? All right. So listen to me. Here's my plan. We're going to call them, because you guys are pretty adamant and you all have mobility to get to City Hall. We're going to call a meeting and invite all of you that are here now and anybody else is in the building. And we're going to sit down with your management, with city staff. And we're going to go over, not every one of you've got to give testimony because there's a redundancy, but nevertheless, you painted a picture on a not too old building that is in great disrepair. I mean, I'm sure you moved into the place thinking, this is a nice place.
And I've been there 2 years, got 4 managers.
Now, is it the same management company with a different person? So always the same management company? Or do they get, no?
Different owner.
All right. Nevertheless, we'll find out who the current management team is as soon as we can. It sounds like things are pretty dire over there, and it's about public health and safety. And I think we can certainly do something about the people sleeping in your different areas there. So we'll put eyes on that to begin with, okay? And then we will hold accountable those that live there. And the city has different ways of working with management companies to make sure that they provide a living existence that's safe for you to be there.
Well, can we keep our plants? That's what we want.
Well, I think sounds to me that was the tipping point.
It was that letter.
No, I don't know what, I can't address that. You might have the Garden of Eden out there. You might be drove. I don't know what you got. Yes. All right. We're going to address, I've heard about the homeless. I heard about doors that don't shut. I've heard about the people that don't feel safe on the premises, lights that aren't on, cameras that don't work, cars that are broken into. I would like to think that they would have on staff security 24/7.
But he's having fun. That's what he likes.
I'm not even a preacher, and I got him going.
Mr. Mayor, yeah. Let's shoot for. The city attorney reminded me he's out here Thursday for office hours. Let's see if we can do it Thursday.
All right.
Yeah.
So we're gonna. But anyway, just know we hear you. We want to do our best to help you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
If I may, this morning we have about 12 volunteers who are going to meet Wednesday. We will come up with a legitimate
No, but let's put out the really heinous stuff,
Okay. Is there someone in the group that we can get a phone number and a name for a contact that go-to person? Right here. Okay. And would you like Councilman Coop's cell phone number? I got it.
Yeah, you want to come live at my house?
Yes.
My name is Yolanda Roldan.
Yeah, pull it down. Yeah.
My name is Yolanda. I live in the same place. Last December, I spoke to Jean De Longa about all these issues that the tenants have with the maintenance people also. They have no respect for elder people. And they act in a very rude way.
Okay.
For all the tenants, they've been working there for several years, but they have no respect for us.
Okay. Thank
No,
you.
we have respect for you. Please respect us, and we will work through this together. It's not an overnight change, but you got to start somewhere. But I'd like to think that it's somewhere in the next 6 months, you guys will come back here and say, what a difference. That's our goal.
All right.
Yes, sir. Yes, Pastor.
I just like to say, it hurt my heart this morning when I was speaking to a tenant that's been there 15 years. And she's had plants. And she has beautiful plants. And she says that she normally go out in the morning and have a cup of coffee and look at her plants.
That's what I do.
And she disposed of her plants this weekend. And so she said, this morning I had to sit on a patio with concrete.
Pastor, would you do me a favor? Offer a prayer right now about what we're talking about. Can you do that for me?
May we everyone's attention, please. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for intervening, Father. And we just thank you to come into the midst of our presence, Father. Father, your word says in Revelation 3:8, God has set before us an open door that no man can shut. Father, you have opened up the door to our city councilmen and gave us their listening ears, Father. We just thank you for their, Lord.
Thank you.
Lord, you have blessed each individual that is here to serve and to serve your people. And we thank you for them. Thank you for their knowledge. Thank you for their energy. Thank you for their love for their community. And we just give you all the praise and all the glory, Father, as we have marched down that road, Lord, to be able to do the things that you have permitted us to do. And we just want to be obedient, be good stewards, Father. We ask you to bless us as we honor you. In Jesus' holy and righteous name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Now, you're welcome to stay if you like to listen to this stuff. Or if you want a chance to go home and watch TV. So,
Yeah, I hope we don't.
Thank you all.
Yes. Okay, while we're clearing out, we're going to take a health break. I'm going to shuffle the agenda and do 13B. I'm going to bring that as the first item that we see.
Mr. Mayor,
I see. Go ahead.
I was going to present.
Hang on a minute. Is there anybody else wishing to come to the podium for public comments? Okay, and that's making sure. I see some new faces out there, and I didn't really say we were done, so I was keeping the rules right. Okay. Okay, 13A. I mean 13B. Mr. Berger?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As you're aware, 13B was originally supposed to be recommended action to put the city charter onto the ballot. Regrettably, in reviewing matters last Friday as I prepared for tonight's agenda, I noted that what I had thought been public hearings in the past were not. There's a specific process by which cities must go through in order to put a city charter onto the ballot, and we have simply run out of time in order to conduct the public hearings necessary to make that happen. We need a minimum of 51 days at this point, and we only have 31 days before the drop dead date of August 11th, 2022 to put matters onto the ballot. So I do apologize for that. we will be prepared in 2 years when you can do this again and have the public hearing schedule set up for that. That said, a survey was done pursuant to the City Council direction in May when it considered the city charter item, and FM3 representatives are here to present the survey data for that, and perhaps after listening to that, you may want to take a different action or postpone whatever action you want to take. So happy to answer any questions.
And I do have a question, and from what I understand is the requirements for public hearings for the charter city are different than other type of ballot measures?
Correct. So there are a minimum of 2 public hearings that must take place for considering a city charter, and each of those public hearings require a minimum of 21 days notice. And then there has to be a minimum of 30 days difference between the 2 public hearings, and the city council cannot put the city charter onto the ballot until 21 days after the second public hearing. So even if you figure in a shortened noticing period, like the day after you've had your first public hearing, you still can't make the timeline for August.
Okay, the math can't be done.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, with that, let's hear from FM3.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. I'm just going to take a moment to set up the slides, and then I will be happy to present the results. Okay, I believe you should be able to see one slide. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'd be happy to answer any questions after the presentation, of course. So we conducted a survey between June 22nd and July 5th of this year, so very recently. It was a dual mode survey, which includes a portion of the sample responding online and a portion on the phone. And the survey was conducted among a random sample of 405 City of Bellflower voters who are likely to vote in the November 2022 election based on their past voter history or if they've registered to vote recently. For questions asked of everyone, the margin of error is plus or minus 4.9%. We contacted voters by telephone and email, and there's one of the questions where we've tracked the results from previous surveys we've conducted on behalf of the city, and we'll show that to you in a moment. And of course, the survey was available in English and Spanish. And if you're very quick and notice something doesn't quite equal 100%, I blame that entirely on rounding error. So first, before we get into the ballot initiative that the legal counsel mentioned, I want to give you a little sense of the mood of the electorate and the context to which we entered the survey. We began the survey by asking if things in the city are generally headed in the right direction, or did folks feel that things are headed off on the wrong track? We also offered the ability for people to volunteer whether things are kind of mixed, and so the blue is the right direction, the red is the wrong track. The darker gray is mixed, and the lighter gray are the folks who said they didn't know enough to offer an opinion. And as you could see, comparatively to previous years, the right direction has dropped pretty dramatically. The last time we asked this question among voters was in June of 2020, when we were conducting a follow-up survey in preparation for your discussion as to whether you would place a sales tax measure on the ballot, which you subsequently did, and it was subsequently successful. I should say, comparatively to other cities, with one or two exceptions, the right direction has dramatically, or at least proportionally, dropped compared to even last year, where we've done baseline surveys in other cities and tracking surveys this year. What's striking to me is that your wrong track is only modestly increased, that more of the voters who are likely to vote in November consider there to be sort of things are mixed in the city. And you'll see in a moment that, you know, a lot of it will be attributed to the dramatic cost of living that's at a 40-year high, and of course very high gas prices, of which the city has virtually no control over, those items. But we're seeing this across the board in cities in Southern California as well as throughout California. We then provided them with a list of 11 issues, and we asked them how serious they thought this was a problem facing the city of Bellflower. The dark red is very serious problem. The pink is somewhat serious problem. I've aggregated the very and somewhat serious on the right-hand side and ranked it like that. The light blue is not too serious a problem. The dark blue is not at all serious a problem, and the gray are the folks who said they didn't know enough to offer an opinion. There are going to be 2 slides showing these 11 items, and you could see that the cost of living, number of homelessness, and the lack of affordable housing and the economy lead the way in terms of serious problems, with the number of homeless being the largest with respect to the very serious problem, that intensity. And that really, I saw the earlier presentation, of which there's been somewhat of a decline in terms of unsheltered individuals or people experiencing homelessness in the city, which is, of course, good news. But as I believe the Mayor Pro Tem said, even one unsheltered individual is too many. And so people clearly see the number of homeless as an issue particularly serious in the city of Bellflower. Comparatively to other cities in LA County, the numbers are equally as high, with a few small exceptions. And then on the second list of items, you could see that dark red, which is the very serious problem, has started to decline. And if we go down, particularly as it relates to the charge of this survey about the city charter measure, you'll notice that too much growth and development is only 22% very or somewhat serious, with only 5% saying very serious. And if part of the rationale, to which I understand, and people will correct me if I'm wrong, of having access to or creating a city charter is to have greater use on land use in the city, what's striking is that it's such a low problem in your city comparatively to most cities in California, particularly in LA County, where there is a concern about too much growth and development. I have not seen these low numbers like this in a very long time, and it may speak to the interests of the city to have a little bit more control over what kinds of growth and development, particularly related to affordable housing, occur in the future. I'm now going to move on to the potential city charter measure, which I understand won't be placed on a ballot this year, but of course, for the purposes of the survey, we wanted to get sort of in real time what people thought of with the upcoming election. So we presented them with a potential ballot question, which of course I would recommend we alter based on the findings of the survey, but nonetheless, we offered this. If they were online, they read it. If they were on the phone, they heard it. Shall the Bellflower City Charter to enhance local control over municipal affairs and better challenge efforts by agencies outside of cities' jurisdiction seeking to impose policies upon cities' residents without local approval and requiring all changes to the charter be approved by voters, be adopted. And we said after they heard this, if there were an election today, would you vote yes in favor or no to oppose? If they said they would vote yes in favor, we asked them, is that definitely or probably, because we want to know the intensity of support. And if they said no, we asked them again, is that definitely or probably no, because we want to know the intensity of the opposition. If they were undecided, initially we pushed them a little and we said, well, would you lean yes or would you lean no? The folks who said they'd lean yes, we put them in the yes camp. The folks that they said they'd lean no, we put them in the no camp. And then in this case, 19% said they just didn't know enough to offer an opinion at that time and wanted to know more. So on the initial vote, which is, by the way, if you were to have moved forward, would be a 50 plus one measure, is 50% yes, 31% no, and 19% undecided. And I'll remind you that the margin of error is approximately 5 points. So on the high end, you'd be at 55. At the low end, on the yes, you'd be at 45. For a 50 plus one measure, that definitely is extremely low at 21%, where I'm looking at a low 30 as a bare minimum to a 50 plus one measure. That being said, the definitely no is below the floor that I normally see of about 20% for most ballot measures. It's around 16%. And what's striking to me, and which you'll see in a moment and really helps understand it, is that if you add up the undecided lean yes, the undecided lean no, and the pure undecideds, you're at 31%. So almost a third who just are undecided because they don't know enough about what this is. So we moved forward in the survey and gave them a little bit of an explanation to try to give them a sense of what the city was asking them or potentially asking them to consider. And in this description, this basic description, it's the intent to explain that the Bellflower is a general law city, and that this measure would provide more local control over a variety of things, but most notably of determining land use and contracts with vendors. And we also told them factually that 1/4 of California cities are already chartered cities, including many of your nearby neighbors, Downey, and the other ones listed on the list: Cerritos, Long Beach, Whittier, and Signal Hill. And then we said, having heard that, we re-asked that ballot question that you saw a moment ago. And on the left-hand side, you'll see that initial vote when they just heard the ballot summary was 50 yes, 31 no, 19% pure undecided. After that brief description, support goes up from 50 to 75. That's 25% increase with a couple of sentences. And the definitely yes moves up from 21 to 42, a jump of 20 points. And note the definitely no, which was at 16%, is now down to 6%. I rarely see this kind of increase in a very short period of time in the survey. This tells me, one, that we could have, if you move forward in the future, a better ballot language. And by that, a much more explanatory and easier to comprehend. And that perhaps will provide a stronger initial vote. But nonetheless, with that brief description, you have 3/4 of the city saying they would consider voting yes, and 14% say they would consider voting no. And as you know, you can't advocate, but you can educate. And so we presented them with 5 educational statements and also 5 critical statements. So you had a fair and balanced weighing of the proposition. So among the 5 educational statements, after each one, and we randomized it so people heard them in different order, we asked them after each one, tell me if it would make you more inclined to vote yes on the measure. The items in the parentheses, the words other cities, development, and you'll see the words cost of contracts, no new tax, and Bellflower first in a moment. Those were not read to respondents either on the phone, or they were not read if they were online. This is just simply for us, so I don't have to read 5 statements. But basically, you could see the much more inclined, which is the dark blue, and the grayish lighter blue of somewhat more inclined, have aggregated the total more inclined on the right-hand side. These statements indicate that people are much more likely to support the measure having heard these statements. And remember, it's only a 50+1 measure, and you're getting in all of these statements that you're about to see, at least 7 in 10 or more are more inclined to vote yes on the measure having heard of it. Among the lead messages, so statistically they're all very close, is the fact that 8 of your neighboring cities are already chartered cities, and it protects the character and quality of life in their communities. And some would argue in your city that you folks should do the same. Another argument that's strong is the fact that becoming a charter city allows for more local control on where you build more affordable housing, rather than taking orders from the state to build housing developments that have no size or height limits and no parking and traffic control standards. And we presented additional statements to the respondents, cost of the contracts. You have a little bit more control over costs for certain public works projects. That this is not a new tax, that if there is to be a tax, that it would still have to be approved by voters as it normally has in the city. And it will allow Bellflower to by becoming a charter city, you'll be able to focus on Bellflower first and not rely on Sacramento to assume what is best interest for the city. So having given them some educational statements, we re-asked the ballot question. On the left-hand side was the initial vote, just hearing ballot summary. You'll recall, I've shown this a few times now, was 50 yes, 31 no, 19% undecided. After that very brief description of a couple of sentences explaining how there would be more local control, particularly over land use and some contracts with vendors in the city, and the fact that there are many neighboring cities that are already charter cities in the gateway cities. Support you saw went up by 25 points to 75%. After education, not much more movement on the yes, just by 1 point, but the definitely yes is still rising 5 points. That's a little beyond the margin of error. And so at a 50+1 measure after education, you are almost there in the definitely yes. And note, your definitely no is only 6%. Very, very small percentage. You rarely see that in any kind of measure. And now, to be fair and balanced, we introduce some oppositional statements. You'll remember that the opposition needs 50% to be successful. Supporters need 50+1. And of course, supporters have no control over the bully pulpit of the opposition. So we try to test some really tough, hard-hitting questions to see if the measure was resilient or not. In this case, after each one that was randomly presented, we said, would this make you more inclined to vote no on the measure? Again, the words in the parentheses were not read to them, nor were they read if they were reading it online. It's just for us. And so the arguments about anti-housing, some would argue that the efforts of the city to get around state requirements to build affordable housing is one of the reasons why the city is considering being a charter city. And we talked about the fact there are sort of prevents less rules. It allows for political favors to occur. Some people would argue that. And at the end, at the bottom one, that this measure is simply not necessary. There's nothing wrong with the way the city is run now. And you could see the resonance, the support, the impact of these arguments is not as strong as those coming from the educational statements. In the case of the educational statements, you'll recall much more inclined to vote yes were in the mid 40s, and overall total more inclined were in the 70s here. They're just in the 20s and the 40s, so not as strong on the opposition side. Nonetheless, we re-asked the ballot question to see the impact after that. So left-hand side, initial vote, just ballot summary, 50 yes, 31 no. After description, a brief statement of what this was all about. And from that, I think we can strengthen the ballot question, rise up 25 points to 75-14. After education, a couple of educational statements, not much increase, only 1 point, but that definitely goes up 47 to 47%, 5 points. After a vote of critical statements, support drops down from 76 to 16, a drop of 15 points. Definitely yes, which was at 47, drops to 33%, but note, the definitely no is only at 8%, and the total no is at 24%. The results suggest that this measure could be viable with the right ballot measure and public outreach. In conclusion, initially 1 and 2 would vote yes on the Bellflower becoming a charter city, but only roughly 2 and 10 said they would definitely vote yes. 3 and 10 are initially undecided on the measure when you incorporate the undecided lean yes and the undecided lean no. After a brief description, overall support increased 25 percentage points from 50 to 75. And after education, overall support remained 47, almost 1 in every 2 saying they would definitely vote yes. After critical statements, overall support drops 15 percentage points from 75 to 61, but remains above the simple majority threshold needed for passage and above the margin of error. The city charter measure appears viable at this time. However, legally permissible outreach to explain what the city is asking voters to decide on with this action will be needed to help voters make an educated decision. I guess after your legal counsel has spoken tonight, you will have time to be able to do that. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? I was surprised at those high numbers because it's to get it explained to you. That's just my comment. Okay, then. Thank you for the report. And oh, you do have a question.
I have a question.
You didn't. I'm sorry, I didn't notice.
No.
We have one question.
Just one
Sure.
question.
Okay.
Richard, thank you for the survey.
Yeah.
Sure.
You've always done a good job for us. I'm just curious, based on the statement from our city attorney earlier, that we need to postpone this ballot measure until 2024. Based on your experience on a similar ballot measure, do you think there's going to be a significant change in the mood of the voters between this year compared to 2 years later? Considering that this is not a tax measure, it is a charter measure for the city. Do you think there's going to be a significant change in the mood of the voters?
Well, I've been doing this a long time, and one thing that seems to remain constant is that local control is the preference of voters in mostly all cities. And so unless something happens dramatically in the city, and I've known this city, you are my longest client of 20 years.
Oh, really?
And I have known the city very, very well. And unless something happens that I would be shocked at, what I think is really, and the data bears this out, having dialogue with the community, explaining to them why this is important to the city and to them, the voters and residents specifically, would be really critical. I also think we had some learning lessons from the survey, and I've helped draft, for future consideration by the council and by city staff, and then by the council, of course, strengthening the ballot question. Makes it clearer, understandable, simpler, but does, according to your legal counsel, does all the right things to make it legally and justifiable. I think if you take this time to communicate to the public, unless something dramatic happens, I don't see why these numbers would dramatically change.
Yeah, and just a comment here. I think I'm very impressed with the results of your survey, especially after interjecting the negative connotation of a charter. I mean, it did not dramatically go down in terms of the support. I think that's quite impressive.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, you're above that margin of error. People are going to react to negative comments. It's, people are trying to figure out what this all means. If it's made clear up front and people they understand it, they're going to be less vulnerable to any kind of oppositional effort.
Yeah. Okay, again, thank you so much for your
My
great
pleasure.
work.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Richard. No more questions. So
Thanks.
we're just going to consensus is to receive and file this item and let it go. Yeah. So without objection, this is received and filed. Done.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, done. Where am I? Okay, let's start at the top now. 11A. Mr. Stewart, when you're ready.
Yeah, this is a public hearing, consideration and possible action to conduct a public hearing to consider adopting resolution number 22-34, resolution adopting policies and procedures for distributing economic development funds to business and or property owners participating in downtown economic development business assistance plan. And superseding resolution number 17-36, approve a budget amendment to fund the marketing and implementation of the additional program and designate the northwest corner of Bellflower Boulevard, and Oak Street for designated block downtown facade improvement program. And Mr. Delong has a staff report for you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart.
Before we start, I'm going to have to recuse myself due to a property conflict within 500 feet of that item, so I'm going to step out.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Let the record reflect that the mayor is recusing himself on item 11A. All right, Mr. Delonga, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the City Council. Good evening. I'm not going to repeat what Mr. Stewart just said. It's very long, and it'll just lengthen out the presentation some more. So in July 2017, the City Council adopted the Economic Development Business Assistance Plan, which consolidated several business assistance programs into one business assistance plan. This made it a more streamlined economic development effort for staff and City Council to assist business and property owners to help with the city's economic development. Staff is recommending the addition of 3 new programs to the Business Assistance Plan: the Designated Block Downtown Facade Improvement Program, which we're going to call Chapter 3.3, the Downtown Artisan Manufacturing Rental Assistance Program, which is going to be Chapter 4, and the Small Business Microloan Program, which is Chapter 5. I'll now go over each of these programs. Oops. Here we go. So, for the first program addition, the Designated Block Downtown Facade Improvement Program, or Chapter 3.3, this program has been added to the plan in an effort to positively impact multiple adjacent downtown building facades and improve the aesthetics of the downtown area. In this program, the City Council will designate specific blocks in the downtown to be eligible for this category of the plan. Participating property owners will enter into a grant of facade easement with the city. This easement will authorize the city to construct and maintain improvements to the facades of the buildings in that block for 10 years. Initially, staff is proposing that this program be funded with $175,000 from the unallocated monies in the Economic Development Fund. Staff is recommending that Chapter 3.3 first be used to improve the facades of the buildings at the northwest corner of Bellflower Boulevard and Oak Street, adjacent to the Edgeway Downtown Bellflower project that's currently under construction. The second program addition is the Downtown Artisan Manufacturing Rental Assistance Program, or what we'll call Chapter 4 of the plan. This program is being added to help artisan manufacturing businesses as startups or those scaling up from home-based businesses adjust to paying the rent associated with a brick-and-mortar storefront in the downtown. And this also complements the zoning changes being proposed by the Town Center Zoning Ordinance Text Amendment. The program offers assistance for a maximum of 24 months and begins at 60% of the starting monthly rent amount. This assistance amount is reduced by 1/24 of the assistance each month over the 24-month period. The assistance will not exceed $1,000 in any given month, and the maximum subsidy over that period of time is $12,000. The business owner is reimbursed on a monthly basis after the rent payment is confirmed by both the business owner and the property owner. The third program addition is the Small Business Microloan Program, or Chapter 5 of the plan. Under this chapter, microloans are available from $5,000 to $30,000 for working capital, equipment or machinery purchases, inventory purchases, startup capital, and or direct business expenses. These loans will be provided at prime rate plus 2% with terms up to 10 years. Applicants must be for-profit entities and must create or retain at least one full-time equivalent job. The loans will be secured on a best efforts basis with a cosigner or collateral, and a personal guarantee will be required from all owners with 20% or more in ownership of the business. Additionally, after review of the overall business assistance plan, some minor updates were made, most notable of which are the incorporation of a 1-year time limit with a 6-month extension for applicants to complete approved improvements under the plan, and limiting Chapter 1, the Downtown Business Alcohol Licensing Assistance Program, to Bellflower Boulevard south of the 91 freeway. This is being done as a result of and to remain consistent with the recommended changes in the zoning ordinance text amendment for the town center. Staff is recommending that the City Council open the public hearing, take documentary and testimonial evidence, and after considering the evidence, adopt resolution number 22-34. 2, approve a budget amendment to increase the allocation for account number 510-44410-4002 by $420,000 for chapters 3.3, 4, and 5 of the plan, and to increase the allocation for account number 510-41310-4002 by $40,000 for marketing and promotion, using $175,000 from unencumbered funds in the Economic Development Fund and $285,000 from the budget savings resulting from the ARPA funds received by the city. 3, designate the block of buildings that occupy the northwest corner of Bellflower Boulevard and Oak Street for the designated block downtown facade improvement program, or alternatively discuss and take other action related to this item. This concludes my report, and staff is available for questions.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, Mr. Lolonga, for the report. And first of all, I want to say that I'm really pleased that the city is able to provide this kind of grants to small businesses. After attending the, together with Councilmember Sanchez and Hamada, the opening of the Emperadores program, I'm more convinced that the city is a friendly city, Bellflower is a friendly city, and we're able to do this kind of assistance. And as I mentioned at my remarks to them, I really want to encourage them to, once they finish the program, to start their business, to consider starting business in the city of Bellflower, because we are investing in them, so to speak. And also with this additional program that we have for business assistance, I think it will enhance their ability to run a business, to open a business and thrive in our city. So just one question before I turn over to other members of the council. For the rental assistance, what is the commitment of the grantee, so to speak, in terms of the lease term?
It's at least a 2-year lease.
Okay, good. So there's they have to prove that they have a 2-year lease. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, very good. All right. Any question for Mr. Delonga? Councilmember Coops?
Oh, no.
Go ahead.
Oh, Councilmember Hamada.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Just a quick one, Jim. Well, first off, again, yeah, thank you for the creativity that goes along with this, and thinking outside and looking at what's coming forward, and so these are right on spot. But the question regarding the fundings for each, and obviously this is a budget allocation modification. So if in the future, if this passes, and in the future, if you don't have enough money in a certain account, you would come back for any modification subject to council approval, or would you have any authority to sort of not mix and match, but take some from a certain account to fit within and still be within the full?
Well, the major changes to the budget are amending the budget to that one account for all 3 of these programs, which also actually includes the other business assistance programs as well, the ones we already have. So there is a little bit of of ability for us to move funds around within that account. But if there's anything major, we definitely would come back to council.
All right, good. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hamada. Any other questions? Councilmember Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Jim, first off, thank you for the, again, the creativity I was mentioned earlier. Can you take me back to the slide regarding the assistance program for the Bellflower, the Business Alcohol Licensing Assistance, Chapter 1? And can you, if you don't mind, would you walk us through the reasoning behind the limitation for the south of the 91?
Sure. So initially, when this was first approved, the business alcohol assist program was for the towns, the whole length of Bellflower Boulevard from Main Street all the way down to the city boundary, the south city boundary. And with the proposed changes in the town center zoning ordinance text amendment, the requirement for a CUP for alcohol within the town center area will only require an administrative use permit, I think is what it will be called now. And so it'll be essentially a minor CUP, which will only cost approximately, significantly cheaper than what it originally cost for that specific area, the town center area. Okay. So at this point, we figure we'll still keep this as part of the plan, but keep it for south of the freeway where that is not impacting Bellflower Boulevard.
Okay, thank you. I was just making sure we weren't doing something else with the other passage. Okay, perfect. That makes sense. Thank you. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
All right.
Or Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I
Thank
just
you, Mr.
wanted to
Sanchez.
clarify that.
Okay, good.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Councilmember Coops?
Thank you. Jim, if, say we don't get enough participation in the artisan manufacturing rental assistance, so you have money left over, we just discussed that you can reallocate those dollars. And likewise, I think the $175,000 for the, I think that's the number, yeah, for the facade improvements, that's a guesstimate, an estimate. It could be 150, it could be 200. So there's always going to be a little playroom here. Now, when the program's all said and done, and we have not spent all the money in the allocated areas, what becomes of that money?
This money goes into the unencumbered economic development fund at the end of the year, and that's where we are getting the $175,000 for the
So
facade
it's not money we've got to
program.
send back to anyone else. We can keep it and use it in another area at a
Correct.
different time.
You mean like CDBG or HUD or something
Exactly.
like that? Yes,
So we can,
you are correct.
I didn't know whether or not we had to be on top of this to be exact in spending it all, or if we did not have success in one area.
We have flexibility with
We have
these
flexibility.
funds.
That's all I have for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Coops. Just a follow-up, if there's extra money or excess money or unspent money, we can use that for facade improvement in a different area within downtown.
Correct.
So we have flexibility.
That's a good thing.
All right. Another question, Jim, is that, so there's going to be payments coming in. This is a 10-year loan, right?
Yes.
For the microloan?
Yes.
So, so is the money going to be reinvested in this loan program as we receive payments from the applicants?
Well, it's not initially set up that way, but we can set it up that way in the future, similar to a revolving loan program that I applied for to the EDA about a year ago. I applied to the Economic Development Administration for a revolving loan fund where they would have provided funds to us for something just like this, a microloan program where you would just be refilling the fund with the payments that come back from the loans that you give out. So that is something that we could look into. It's just kind of a starter to see how the programs work.
So if the need is there to continue the program, we can continue it as a loan program?
Yes.
As long as there's a need?
Yes.
Okay. All right, very good. Any other question? Councilmember Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Temp. Actually, you bring up a good point when you talk about flexibility. So going back, and please bear with me, going back to the alcohol assistance program, have we historically, or have we ever, or can we assist applicants through the ABC process? Because that's usually a cumbersome, expensive process as well.
Yes, it is. And we do help them through a consultant. We have Liz O'Neill of O'Neill Ventures. She assists people through that program, and her time is paid for by the city as part of an economic development effort.
Would it be possible for us to continue to be able to have this assistance across the board in the downtown, even with the AUP process, if for the purposes of the ABC process?
Absolutely. She's actually available for businesses citywide.
Okay, she's citywide.
Yeah.
No, I guess what I'm saying is for because the assistance that we talk about in this chapter 5, it's about helping them through covering some of the costs through the CUP process. Could we help them through the cost of the ABC process as well? Is that?
I think you mean the cost of the license, purchasing the license?
Right.
In the process?
That's
I don't
a
think
big
that's
variable,
eligible
isn't
use.
I think depending on the license, it's significantly more than what our CUP process
Yeah, I mean,
is.
those licenses go upwards of $125,000 for.
Well, I wouldn't say we would help them with the entirety.
Right. So, I mean, are you asking if these funds could be used toward up to the limit as far to?
Well,
offset
no,
the
what
cost
I'm
of
saying
licenses?
is, if my colleagues,
Right.
would consider, is it, instead of limiting ourselves, could we just reallocate it? So, for example, we're saying we're gonna limit to the downtown, the south of the 91, the fees that we would normally cover, right, for the CUP process. So that same amount that we would have covered through the CUP process, can we just reallocate it in for the ABC process?
You're creating an additional use of the
Right,
funds
I'm
for the
creating a
ABC process.
flexibility opportunity.
So the cost of that's a nominal fee, or like at $3,500 or so? plus
35
bonus?
to 5,000.
Yeah, I mean, the answer is theoretically yes, if your colleagues agree, but it's a nominal nominal assistance to the cost of buying an alcohol license, an ABC license. So, yeah, I mean, it's really a policy call. If you feel that's symbolically important to do so, there's certainly no objection to it from our side.
I mean, any assistance when you're starting a business is
Yeah,
important, right?
I hear you.
I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there.
Were you talking just the TC zone or citywide?
No, this TC zone, I mean, this is all TC related, right?
I think you're talking about the entire downtown, right, from
Right,
south to north.
the entire
yeah.
downtown.
So, yeah, zone 1 and 2, yeah.
I mean, it's very minor support.
Yeah, my take on that is I think we're already providing a lot of assistance. We're providing assistance on the CUP process. We have the consultant working with them for free.
Right.
But I think to pay for their ABC permit, if that's what we're talking about, I think that's overextending, because if a business cannot even afford to pay for the ABC license.
No, you're right. I think, so what I'm saying is, for example, in the south of the 91, we're saying we're still going to support them through the CUP process, right? That minimal fee. In the upward sides of the 91, we're not going to support them at all through the alcohol. Well, besides the.
I don't think that's what.
Besides the, what's it called? Besides the support that we get from our consultant, what I'm saying is the same amount that we would have supported on the CUP process, could we reallocate that funding into supporting them through the ABC process?
Well, we have provided assistance on that.
We did. We're proposing in this plan to remove the
limit it.
full CUP support north of the 91 because we're now changing to an administrative use permit.
The goal is to increase the number of people that are eligible for the assistance and those administrative use fees that we're providing, so that the north part would be included as well, and has been included, frankly.
Right,
We're just extending
traditionally,
it
but
forward.
this is limiting that.
Yeah. Is it?
Yes.
Is that, are you
Well, we're
saying
no longer going to pay for the permit process because it has been dropped so much and now
to
it's
the AUP?
expedited.
So
Yeah.
what I think Victor's saying is, so it drops from 3,500, I think 1,500 was the estimate. We don't know the total cost yet. I think he's looking to extend that through to cover the AUP cost up north as well, right? I mean, is that your, something like that?
No, what I was saying was the 3,500 would just be reallocated.
I see.
The same amount, but would be allocated for the ABC process.
For actually using it for the
Yeah, I
ABC.
see. I understand the
Yes.
point,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's the same amount.
That's
It's
a
the same
fair
level of support financially. The only difference is on the south of the 91, it's for our CUP process.
Yeah, I get it.
And
I
north of the
understand.
91 is for their ABC process.
Yeah, that's a pure policy call. It's really up to your call.
So what you're suggesting is we pay for the ABC permit, basically, not.
No.
The process.
What he's saying is we're contributing toward the purchase of the license on the north side.
Right.
Yeah, right.
The
Which is the ABC.
The same amount that we would have for the CUP process, 3,500. So there'd be equal support, south or north.
Trying to balance the scales for the cost. We've extended this program to go south of the boulevard. This situation doesn't exist south of the freeway. It doesn't exist north of the freeway. He's looking to balance the scales by offsetting the cost of actually buying the ABC permit, right, or license,
Up
right?
to the same
Yeah,
amount
yeah.
that we would have done for the CUP process.
It's just it's a way to share the wealth, basically, is
Yeah,
what I think.
it's sharing the wealth across the downtown.
Okay, any comments? Councilmember Hamada?
Is it actually for the permit or to help, what could assist in the process with ABC?
As I'm understanding the request, it was to purchase the license. It'd be the $3,500 offset to actually purchase the ABC license, which, unless you get it in the lottery, it runs in excess of $125,000 for the license, yeah.
And it would be a reimbursement, right? I mean, it could be as a reimbursement as well. They have to complete the process and actually get the license.
It could be whatever you decide to do, yeah.
Do you think there's a need for the north of the freeway for that kind of support? Any establishment that would need 3,500 to get a
I mean, we're doing it south of the 91.
But what my point is, the north of the freeway is well established already. Most of the business has been there for quite a long time.
I would hope that more
Right.
we would get more applicants. but,
Right. Whereas
I
the
mean,
south, we're kind of venturing into the south, which is newer.
it's a minimal support, but just trying to keep it equal. That's all.
But the ABC is going to determine with the census tract whether or not we can even allow for this to go forward. I mean, we can't put every applicant's not going to get a license, even if they got the 125 or 150.
That's one factor.
I mean, that has to enter in as
Yeah.
well. But I'm cognizant of the fact that we hope to have the exchange open up, which I assume will have a liquor part. But I don't know if it's beer and wine or hard stuff or what we got there. But I know we have projects down there that have a liquor component.
Correct.
Right. And also the Bellflower Center. So we have new developments in south of the freeway that could potentially take advantage of the license.
Right, but again, we've got a census tract to deal with. There may be no room for them now. I don't know how many are active or inactive.
Okay.
That part of it is out of our control.
I know,
That's
but
ABC, right, yeah.
But I don't want to give the public or anybody
Yeah,
else
right.
the idea that
That we're
just
just-
because we're supporting this,
Right.
that it's a guaranteed liquor license.
Right.
Right.
So do you think there's a need north of the freeway? I mean, I just don't want to open it up without any need.
I was just keeping the flexibility. That's all.
I think you're just trying to balance the scales, correct? You're just
Right.
looking for a way. If there's another, I think what I'm hearing is, if there is a way to provide an additional $3,500 assistance that we're providing south of the freeway for another program, that'd be acceptable as well.
Right.
Is that the only way we can kind of balance it?
I don't
Or
know. Any
there's
ideas,
other
Jim?
ways.
I don't know.
I mean, there's a business assistance program. We have, Mr. Delonga,
Yeah.
let's hear from you.
It is a policy call, as the city manager said. I don't know, we have so many programs. We had a wide variety of programs now on this menu of economic development tools that we offer. Not to saying that $3,500 can help a business with a beer and wine license, which tends to be a little bit less expensive than a full liquor license, significantly so. But we do have a wide variety of programs that can assist, but this could help a restaurant that is on the lower end and is really trying to open up and maybe have a beer and wine license.
And will the money be allocated for this out of somewhere? Are we designating a specific amount for this?
It's already allocated. Right now, we're just talking about who can use it or who could access it.
So this is going to be part of the same pot of money?
Same pot of money, of which about $200,000 a year has been budgeted in for the past few years.
Okay, well, if that can be used, that's fine. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good.
As long as we're not allocating a different pot of money.
No.
Okay, all right.
Jim, are you clear with that amendment?
Correct, yes.
So, okay, so we'll have to make sure you get that, and we'll get it back into the second read when we come back. There's no second read, okay. All right, so I guess the way we'd go forward tonight, since there is no second read, that you would delegate the authority to me to get the language right with Mr. Delonga, which actually is my friend, Mr. Berger here.
Okay, all right. Any other question? Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Make a move to.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Coop, seconded by Councilmember Sanchez to open the public hearing. Without objection, that will be the order. Anyone would like to speak on this agenda item? Please come forward, sign in, and state your name for the record.
Okay, I already signed in. My name is Tanya McMillan, and I'm a Bellflower resident. Thank you, council members. Thank you, my council member, Sanchez. I just opened up a business called Dart's Corner on Downey and Artesia. I am looking at this amazing economic development plan that you guys are presenting for downtown. I am here to ask you, how can we get something like that for someone like me who has just opened this business literally a month and a week, and I need this type of help in order for me to make my business successful. I'm in the shopping center, like I said, on Downey and Artesia, where McDonald's is, the new Advanced Auto, Pep Boys. Since I've been there, the homeless and drug activity that used to take place is not taking place any further. The other businesses that are on that road with me are so glad that I'm there because I have amazing security. I've hired 9 people who are working for me. I come from labor. All of my employees make livable wages. I follow the rules. I work with the planning division with Jim and Catherine and these amazing folks. Spent my own money, renovated, did everything that I was supposed to do, worked with an individual who tried to steal my business from me right out the gates, but I'm still here. But I'm hurting now for funding, and I'm looking at this amazing work that's taking place, and it's all centered around downtown, and I think that's great, but I don't want to be left out of an opportunity to help me build my business. And so I'm here to humbly ask you guys, can you do something for somebody like myself, a minority, a woman who has opened a business that is predominantly male customers, who needs help? So thank you.
All right, thank you. As you recall, the city of Bellflower, when we developed these programs, we know that there is not enough money in the coffers of the city. So we need to start somewhere. And if I recall correctly, the city council with staff made a conscientious decision to start somewhere because there's not enough money to go around. That's why we started building upon Bellflower, downtown Bellflower. And I wish we have a lot more money, but we will certainly look into it. But certainly right now, our focus is on the business assistance program is on downtown Bellflower. Because we need to start somewhere. Okay, we just don't have enough money to spread it to Artesia, to Lakewood. I wish we have sufficient money. So, but we heard you. We will look into it, but as of right now, our focus is downtown Bellflower, and hoping that in the future it will expand to other areas, and we're going to work on that, certainly. Certainly, we're going to work on that to make sure that we expand these programs to other parts of the city. All right, any other comment?
Move to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second. He's
Sir, are you on
he's
the
with
CRNR?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on.
It's coming.
Motion by Councilmember Coop, seconded by Councilmember Hamada to close the public hearing. Without objection, that will be the order. All right, gentlemen, what's your pleasure? Oh, before we do that, Mr. De La Longa, can you show your slide again in terms of the use of this program, in terms of the microloans?
Sure.
You showed a few items.
The microloan program is up
microloan
there.
program, yeah.
And this actually, this
No,
program.
there's a slide that shows what can be used for.
Oh.
Maybe towards the end, or is it in the?
That's the facade improvement program.
Like inventory, something like that? Or
Right here, yes. The third bullet point, working capital,
There you go,
equipment,
okay.
machinery.
All right, so what is this is a small business program.
Correct.
Okay? What is your expectation? Because I'm trying to gauge the need for $30,000 for, let's say, working capital, excluding equipment and machinery. Do you think that a small business can use $30,000 for working capital, inventory, startup, and direct business expense?
Well, the research and such that I've done indicates that a lot of small businesses and micro businesses are in need of small amounts of money to get things going oftentimes.
Uh-huh.
And this is trying to fill that gap, especially for those businesses that can't get traditional financing. So that's why, are you saying it seems low? Or
It seems high.
It seems high, okay.
For $30,000.
Well, for equipment and the cost of...
No, without equipment.
Oh, without equipment?
Without equipment.
Well, we would look at that during the application process and see what they were using the money for too, as part of the underwriting.
Do you have direct business assistance? What would be that qualification for that use, I think is what he's asking.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a general category there for flexibility, but we're not, I mean, we would be looking at that and seeing if it's a viable use of the funds.
Okay, so you will vet what the fund's gonna be used for?
These things they would come to council.
Oh,
for
yes,
approval. So, I
everything
mean,
gets approved by
it's not gonna
council.
be an arbitrary
Okay, okay.
decision for directly coming to council.
Oh,
for
yes.
this.
Because if
Yeah.
they're not buying equipment, I don't think there's gonna be a need for $30,000 for.
No, you would be attracting, for direct assistance like that, you'd be attracting something that you think was gonna be significant enhancing your downtown, do that. And frankly, those are, as you know, very small numbers of items. that
Right,
would
and
qualify for
I
that.
wish
Yeah.
they'll buy equipment,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's something
That's the
that-
big cost.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, very good. Any other question for Mr. DeLonga? All right. What's
Ready
your
for a
pleasure?
motion?
Yes, Councilmember Coops.
All right, consider impossible action to conduct, well,
Oh, no.
or adopting resolution number 2234, a resolution adopting policies and procedures for distributing economic development funds to business and/or property owners participating in the Economic Development Business Assistance Program, superseding resolution number 17-36, approve a budget amendment to fund the marketing and implementation of the additional programs and designate the northwest corner of Bellflower Boulevard and Oak Street for the designated block downtown facade improvement program, with the caveat that Mr. Stewart will be able to determine money's being used for liquor license enhancements.
Did that capture the essence of the resolution?
I believe so.
I'll
and-
second that.
Yeah.
I won't leave anything out.
Yeah, no, I was sitting there thinking about what you were saying, and I think that does capture that. Yeah, correct.
Okay, the city attorney is listening, so he's typing. Okay. You give
All right,
me a
there's the
thumbs up.
motion.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Coops, seconded by Councilmember Sanchez to adopt the resolution 22-34 and as amended, or as,
Actually, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council, the resolution already delegates authority in it in section 3 of the
Oh, it does
resolution.
already.
So he has that
We have
ability.
direction,
So he's got
we
that.
don't need to do anything.
okay,
Perfect.
perfect, all right. Did we get it, City Clerk? Roll call, please.
Wait, we got a second?
Yeah.
All
Councilmember
right, good.
Sanchez. Yeah.
I thought I was
I
dying out
announced it
here.
already.
Yeah.
Councilmember Coops,
Aye.
Councilmember Sanchez,
Aye.
Councilmember Hamada,
All right.
Mayor Pro Tem Santinas.
Aye. All right, thank you.
Get the mayor.
Let the mayor reflect, the record reflect that the mayor has rejoined the meeting.
Did you guys get anything done while I was gone?
Of
Yeah, we're
course.
continued it. Yeah.
We're helping businesses in Bellflower. How's that?
Good. Okay.
11B.
I don't really need that one no more. 11B's gone.
Oh, man.
Okay, 11B, Mr. Stewart.
Yeah, this is consideration of possible action to conduct a public hearing to consider delinquent refuse service charges and adopt a resolution number 20-36. A resolution ordering the delinquent refuse service charges be assessed against the property owners and properties and such charges be transferred to the county tax rolls. And I believe you have Ms. Gonzalez and Mr. Enigmas here to make the staff report for you.
All right, let's hear it.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. We're going to start with the background on this item. CRNR provides solid waste and recycling services throughout the city of Bellflower. CRNR bills customer directly for these services. Refuse service charges become delinquent if not paid within 30 days. The Bellflower Municipal Code defines a procedure for collection of delinquent refuse service charges. The city retains 10% of the delinquent amount. The timeline for this year is as follows. The list of delinquencies was received on May 31st. Then CRNR sent notices to customers on June 8th. The city then sent notices to property owners on June 15th. The notice for public hearing was published on June 29th and July 7th. The public hearing is set for July 11th. The last day for payments is July 21st, and the final list that is going to be sent to the county assessors is going to be on August 10th. Before you, you have a comparison table between last year delinquent accounts and this year delinquent accounts. As of July 1st, we had 334 delinquent accounts, accounting for $106,613. We anticipate this number to be reduced by August 10th. The recommendation to the City Council is to open the public hearing, take testimonial and documentary evidence. After considering the evidence, adopt resolution number 22-36, or alternatively, discuss and take other actions related to this item. Tonight, we have Public Works Manager Bernie Iniguez and CRNR Representative Ingrid Zaragoza to answer any questions that the council may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Hamada?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick one. I see in the report as of July 1, there was 334 delinquent accounts. I know that they have until the 21st to pay. So it's been 10 days after the 1st. So has that 334 reduced down? Are you aware of a...
So
Just
the
trying to
number has
gauge
gone
it.
down
Yeah.
since July 1st. We keep taking payments on, and again, till the 21st, and that's when the list will be
So
stopped by
it's
CRNR.
been reduced by 50?
Approximately 40 to 50.
All right. Okay. Well, it's progress. That's the thing. That's what we're looking for. So, yeah, I just wanted to get a sense of how it's going. So, all right. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else?
Mayor?
Go
Quick
ahead.
question. Is this your first presentation before City Council?
It is.
Oh, you did well.
No,
All
thank
right,
you.
congratulations.
Thank you so much.
That's good, that's good. And, well, I had to ask you a question, right? You know that. All right. I just noticed that on this long list, there's a particular customer of CRNR that has a huge outstanding amount, $16,429.21. I'm assuming it's a commercial, it's a business.
I better hope so.
It is
So
a commercial business, yes.
Have they reached out to you? Have you reached out to them? It's a huge amount.
I will defer to Bertie, but it is my understanding that this has been a recurring account from past years as well.
As Mrs. Gonzalez stated, that's correct. Last year, this same account was lean approximately $2,000. So they're back on the list again this year. And according to CRNR, this customer has been made aware of their amount owed.
So they paid last year's $2,000 that they owed?
It was on the lien list, so when they pay their property tax bill, at
Oh.
that point, the money will be collected,
Okay.
assuming they pay the property tax.
Well, this one's gonna get their attention. All right, thank you.
Went from 2,000 to 16,000 in a
16,000.
year.
This amount could be
That's
higher
a
than
lot
that.
of money.
This could be more than their tax bill.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Okay, we all good? I'll make a motion to open the public hearing. Okay, the public hearing's open. Without objection, that'll be the order. Anybody wishing to come to the podium, now's your time, yeah.
I received the letters that
Uh-huh.
was presented from CRNR. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Sunil Orsai. The address is 14723 Clark, Bellflower. Turns out my neighbor is trying to steal my property. He opened an account with CNR, just saying that he was living there. He was able to open the account, and I called CNR and said, how are they able to just open an account without any information from the homeowner? And they said all they need to do is just open the account. So this delinquent account was opened by somebody trying to defraud me of my property, trying to steal this, and I didn't find out until I received these letters saying that amounts were due. So I don't think the homeowner should be assessed for these charges. CNR needs to make an attempt to collect from whoever opened these fraudulent accounts and pursue that in that manner instead of hitting the homeowner who has no idea this has occurred. And I've called them to get this resolved, and they said that they won't even deal with me because the account is under this fraudulent person's name, even though I am the homeowner. So I find that ridiculous that I can't even close this person's account, and the fact that they want to bill the homeowner for charges that a fraudulent person put in. And the reason they wanted to get this account is because they can use this to put a utility bill account together and then try to steal your home through a title steal. So I don't think this is the right way to do it. I think go after the person who opened the account, go after their record, go after their credit, and then allow the homeowner to assume the account and close this account. And that way, if there is any billing, the homeowner knows what it is.
Is there somebody living at that property now?
No, there isn't somebody living at that
Oh, it's
property.
a vacant property.
So this person squatted it over, and I'm trying to kick them out through an eviction process while they did this process.
So somebody is living in the property, is squatting in it. Is it something you recently bought?
Something, yes. So they're actually the neighbor is the person who's doing it.
Yeah. But how long have you owned this property?
I've owned this property for over 10 years.
And it's a property that you have not done nothing with it, or?
Well, no, my mother used to live there.
Oh, okay, got it.
So
Okay.
it's my mother's home, actually.
It just happens to be vacant for some time.
So for this last year, it was vacant. So this is when this individual saw an opportunity and since they live next door, to maybe assume the property. And by going about getting this account set up and not needing anything else, not even a lease agreement to open the account, they just opened the account, and CNNR just opened it. I asked them, what's your policy? They said, if you call for service, they'll open the account. And it doesn't matter if you have a lease agreement or not. And so I find that this presents an opportunity for fraud, for squatters, and then they use this information to then get other utilities turned on, and that allows them to then acquire your property through some sort of title steal. So I don't believe this is the right process. I think they should go and contact whoever opened these accounts, go after their credit, and not affect homeowners, because homeowners are victims in this whole situation.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Whose name is on the account?
This other person?
So it's not in your name?
It's not even my name.
No.
Okay, but the delinquent notice was sent to you?
To me, because
Property
I am
owner.
the property owner.
Oh, I see, okay.
So then they send it to me saying, you have unpaid bills, and I'm thinking, how do I have unpaid bills? And then when I do a search, that's when I find out that this fraudulent activity is occurring, and I'm trying to shut it down. And
Have you called CR&R already?
yes, I've contacted them. I've sent them information about my property. I've sent them statements that I don't know this person, whoever opened this account.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I think this is the most interesting one we've had.
Yeah, it is.
since
It's
I've been here. So,
interesting.
I think that right now,
Have
the
Bernie
best way
talk
to
to him.
handle this is he needs to give his address to Bernie.
Yeah.
We need to investigate to make sure that what he's saying is true. And then CR&R is going to have to be directed to deal with that accordingly. If he's correct in saying what he's saying, and he's got the eviction process going, et cetera, that charge needs to go away.
So
Yeah.
the name in this account does live next door to your property?
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
his dad lives next door to my property. It's the son.
And they have trash service at that
Yeah,
property next
this
door?
should be
Yeah.
easy enough to verify,
Yeah.
but the only way to
Yes.
handle this is
Yeah.
ministerially.
So
with-
I know the
Yeah.
name of the individual.
Don't share it now.
I'm
Share
not
it
gonna
with
share it
Bernie and
now.
we'll get it back. Yeah.
Correct, we'll speak
Sure.
outside.
Didn't your mother have trash service there?
She had it previously, then when she left, then we didn't
So you
have a
stopped
need
it?
for it. Right.
And they reinitiated it.
They reinitiated because they wanted to go through this process.
Okay.
You understand, we're going to have to verify everything you just said. So,
Absolutely,
okay, yeah, that's-
absolutely,
So
yes.
we'll do our due diligence there, and then we'll get with CR&R.
Absolutely. I
And
even
if
have-
what you're representing is
I
true,
even have a police report
Yeah.
that I went down to the sheriff and I got.
and you have the
I got this
eviction
started.
proceeding started and all that stuff with the
Right.
property.
I'm in the
Okay.
process of getting that. My attorney is, advising me how to do this properly because there's two individuals and they both have to be served.
Yeah, we'll get to the bottom of that with
Right.
Bernie will do that, definitely, yeah.
All right, Bernie will swap some contact information. That's what I'm trying to say. Bernie's in charge of the department that handles this. He's
Okay.
City of Bellflower employee.
Okay, great.
Yeah, okay, so you're dealing with
What street
him.
is that on?
I'm sorry?
What street is that property?
It's on Clark. Clark, just
What
north
was your
of
cross street, Clark and what?
Clark and Somerset.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had a couple of homeless people in there before. I've been trying to kick them out, and it's just a grind. I've got gated fences, I've got locks on there. They cut the locks, they climb over, and I've had so many break-ins, and it's just hard for me to maintain that. And then I asked a neighbor to help me to protect it, and it turns out the neighbor is the one who created the problem for me.
Is it north of Somerset or south of Somerset?
North of Somerset.
Okay, thank you.
So which council person does everyone? So it's Sunny's? Okay.
We know it's not Victor's area.
I will make sure that we're gonna address this.
I'm just asking. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor
Okay.
Pro Tem.
Yeah, before you leave, get with Bernie here, and you'll walk. Anybody else wishing to speak during the public
Mr.
hearing?
Morris, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion on the floor in a second. Without the objection, that'll be the order. One of those nights.
Yeah. All right,
Just saying.
Mr. Mayor, let's keep going here. I'd like to make a motion for the City Council of Bellflower to adopt Resolution 22-36.
Second.
Got a motion on the floor by Mayor Pro Tem Sonny Santinez and a second by Hamada. Call roll, please.
Councilmember Coops?
Aye.
Councilmember Sanchez?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Santinez?
Aye.
Councilmember Hamada?
All right.
Mayor Dutton?
Aye. 12A, Mr. Stewart.
This is consideration possible action to read by title only, waive further reading, and introduce ordinance number 1417, an ordinance amending certain sections of the Bellflower Municipal Code, Title 17, pertaining to allowable uses, development standards, and processes and procedures in the Town Center TC District. And this was continued from June 27. Ms. Bruin will make the staff report for you.
And before we go, I gotta recuse myself from this one also. I'm conflicted out due to a property located within 500 feet of this item.
All right, let the record reflect that Mayor Dunton is recusing himself on item 12A. All right, who's gonna give the staff report? Catherine?
Yes.
Okay, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Thank you, Mayor Pro Temp, members of the City Council. I just have a short speech for you all tonight. So at the last City Council meeting on June 27th, the City Council closed the public hearing and directed staff to bring back a revised ordinance that incorporated its suggested changes for consideration. So the changes that have been made to the ordinance are summarized on page 2 of your staff reports. The changes include the following. We have the minor conditional use permits, or what we called the MCUPs. They have been renamed as administrative use permits, or AUPs. And that will apply throughout this chapter, as well as Title 17, our zoning chapter of the Bellflower Municipal Code. Hookah bars, cafes were revised to be allowed with an AUP. Archery, axe throwing, and indoor playgrounds have been added to the indoor-outdoor commercial recreational facility use description. And finally, educational uses, childcares, and schools were revised to be allowed only on the second floor or above, and educational uses of less than or equal to 5,000 square feet will be permitted with an AUP. Educational uses that are more than 5,000 square feet will still require a conditional use permit. Staff would like to add one more amendment to table 17.48.040.
What page number is that?
Yes, give me a second. It is on page 10 of your
Page 10,
packets.
all right.
Okay, so this applies to item C12 through C15, educational uses. I inadvertently left out the pointer that will apply to BMC section 17.48.125. So the pointer would go under the special provisions column, and this pointer goes to the public assembly uses development standards. So staff recommends adding this change to the ordinance. And with that, staff recommends to read by title only, waive further reading, and introduce ordinance number 1417 as amended, or alternatively discuss and take other action related to the item.
Okay, thank you so much, Catherine, for the report. Councilmember Sanchez, Councilmember Coops, you made those recommended corrections from the last meeting. Are you pleased with those changes?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Happy about that axe throwing.
Except that it wasn't specific about no children for axe throwing. All right, very good. Councilmember Hamada?
Yes, just quickly, in regards, we did have that robust discussion about the types of indoor, outdoor commercial uses, and we started listing certain activities. And after the meeting, and after you get home, you start thinking about it for some reason, and they're beyond axe throwing, and thinking like, yeah, what will a child do, or somebody, or an adult, and it made me think of batting cages and also, golf simulator places. And do you have the authority within the code already to make your interpretation to add something to similar if it deems fitting to that type of use?
Councilmember Hamada, yes. So I do have the ability to interpret the code, including making determinations of similarity to something that's already existing in the code.
All right. I just wanted to confirm that for the record. The second part was when we, aptly switched from minor CUP to AUP. AUP. And I noticed that it makes reference to compliance with 1798, which is the minor CUP stuff. So down the road, is that getting changed, or are we keeping both uses? Somehow there's got to be in some consistency, I would assume.
Yeah, so the language in this ordinance, 1417, would make that change throughout Title 17.
Okay, great.
So it will remove all references to the minor conditional use permit and replace the language with administrative.
All right,
Yes.
very good. All right, thank you for the record. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
All right, thank you. Any more questions?
I have a question.
Oh, Councilmember Coops.
So if someone's operating a educational facility on the boulevard that really ought not be there, and now we vote to make the change, are they grandfathered? Do they have to reapply because they're there? They shouldn't even be there. But tell me how an existing educational facility on the boulevard would be recognized.
They would be considered legal nonconforming.
Okay.
So then they're subject to the abatement requirements that already exist in our code.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay, all right, thank you. Is there anyone in the public who would like to make a comment on this item? Nope. All right. Gentlemen, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Mayor Pro Temp, I'd like to.
Councilmember Sanchez, yes?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance number 1417, an ordinance amending certain sections of Bellflower Municipal Code, also known as the BMC, Title 17, zoning pertaining to allowable uses, development standards, and process and procedures in the town center district.
Second.
You'd like to introduce, right? The ordinance?
Oh, introduce, sorry.
Okay. Okay.
Amendments?
With the amendments.
As amended. As amended.
As amended.
All right, motion by Councilmember Sanchez, seconded by Councilmember Coops to introduce ordinance 1417 as amended. All right, roll call, please.
Councilmember Coops?
Aye.
Councilmember Sanchez?
Aye.
Councilmember Hamada?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Santinas?
Aye. All right, we're moving along.
Oh, he's coming in a different way.
Oh, let the record reflect that
Yeah.
Mayor
Yeah.
Danton has rejoined the
Yeah.
council meeting.
Mr.
He's
Stewart's
here.
in the parking lot. Yeah.
Welcome back.
Wanted to stay for some of the entertainment out in the hall.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay. Yeah, let's get my spectacles on here. we already did 13A earlier, so it's
No.
13B.
No, it's 13.
We did 13B? Oh,
Right. So
Yeah,
it's
that
13A.
was our,
Yeah, okay. I got my papers misshoveled. 13A, Mr. Stewart?
All right, this is consideration possible action to adopt resolution number 22-35, a resolution authorizing budget amendments for the American Rescue Plan Act, funding the amount of $4,296,913 for fiscal year 2022-2023, and the city manager to implement the approved programs. Mr. Rhea has been waiting all night to make this presentation for you.
I bet this one's not going to be as fun.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. Briefly, under the American Rescue Plan Act, the City of Bellflower received a total of about $21.5 million for coronavirus-related relief. On December 9th of last year, the City Council authorized programming of about $17.2 million of that funding. And tonight, we're requesting that the City Council approve budget amendments for the remaining balance of about $4.3 million in this current fiscal year. And these funds are generally required to be obligated by the end of 2024 and expended by 2026. The four items that we're requesting this evening are: one, premium pay to city employees related to COVID-19 related services. That totals $321,000. Transfer of code enforcement to Public Safety Department for 10 months this fiscal year. That totals about $130,000. And $1 million in additional funding for Public Works Office refurbishment. The current funding in the budget is $1.53 million. So with this additional funding, the total project funding will be $2.53 million. And then the last item is Public Safety Center project, and that's about a little over $2.8 million. Those four items total $4.3 million. This concludes my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have, or we will be.
Any questions today? Or comments? I know me and you know a little more about this than the other colleagues.
Yeah, I just want to make a couple of comments here. I just want to make a couple of comments here. And I'm really pleased that we're able to do this, that we have the money to support these changes that the city manager staff are proposing. First of all, the Public Works Office refurbishment, that's been ongoing for quite some time. It's something that they really need. I think this project started even before Mr. Gorecki joined our city. So it's been in the works for quite some time, and again, it's something that we need to do. And the same thing with the Public Safety Center project. We've been talking about the challenges that we have regarding the current location, where the substation is. And so with this opportunity, we'll be able to relocate the Public Safety Department together with the Sheriff Substation to a different location that's going to be more central in terms of the city. And I'm fully supportive of the transfer of code enforcement to public safety. I think it's the right call. We've been clamoring for these changes for quite some time, and I appreciate the efforts of our city manager in doing this transfer. I think they're going to be more responsive. I think there's going to be better coverage because, in effect, we are kind of blending two departments into one. So. And that's what I've been asking for so many years in terms of coverage, especially on the weekends. We're short on code enforcement on weekends and evenings. So by doing this, I think there's going to be the economies of scale. There's going to be more staff that will be available, again, especially on on evenings and weekends, because we have so many complaints about this push cart around here, about taco trucks that are not permitted operating within the city. And finally, I just want to make a comment regarding this premium pay related to COVID-19. And I really appreciate the staff working through the COVID-19 for 2 years. The city has been, the whole country suffered during those 2 years. So, and in reading the staff report, I really appreciate the premium pay being focused on those who worked during those 2 years that we've been basically locked down. So again, I want to extend my appreciation to our staff who worked day in and day out, and they did not give up, did not make any excuses during that time. They really worked for the city. They made themselves available to all the residents of the city. So in effect, if you remember, the city did not close during COVID-19, okay? Services were limited. Staff was able to make appointments. People who are applying for permits, it was kind of limited, but the city's operations did not stop in even one day, okay? So it continued. So I really appreciate all the staff who worked during those 2 years, and that was basically the emphasis of this premium pay. And again, I want to thank our city manager staff for coming up with this recommendation, focusing on those who worked during those 2 years. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Santinez. Anybody else? Yeah, he did. He got it. And I think we all feel, I'll speak for all of us, and is the employees deserved for being here through those rough times. I understand employees a lot because I have employees on my first life, and my day job anyway. And I understand they are your backbone of what you do, and without them, you can't get anything done. And it's great to feel that you can give them a reward when you can. And with that,
I'd like to make a motion for the City Council of Bellflower to adopt Resolution 22-35.
Second.
got a motion on the floor with for Mayor Pro Tem Sonny Santinez and a second by Councilmember Hamada. Call roll, please.
Councilmember Coops.
Aye.
Councilmember Sanchez.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Santinez.
Aye.
Councilmember Hamada.
Aye.
Mayor Dutton.
Aye. Okay, 13C, Mr. Stewart.
This is a city attorney item. It's in consideration of possible action to order a de novo public hearing regarding conditional use permit number CU 22-05.
You guys don't want to stay to the end? 5 o'clock's coming early, huh?
Have a good night. Mr. Mayor, at this time, I'd like to recuse myself on this item just to ensure objectivity. I will be recusing myself, yep.
Okay, let the record show that Councilmember Sanchez is recusing himself on 13C.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and just for the record, this was not a legal conflict. Councilmember Sanchez chose to recuse himself based upon my advice for one of the reasons that this is being brought up to you based upon my authority to appeal matters from the Planning Commission. Most of this is laid out in the staff report. In brief, there was a Planning Commission meeting held on June 20th at which the Planning Commission held a public hearing. It then closed the public hearing and denied an application for a modification of a conditional use permit involving a hospital. Subsequently, in accordance with the municipal code, it directed staff to bring back a formal resolution which would set forth the reasons for the denial. That's really a ministerial action made by the Planning Commission simply to clarify the record for the reasons for denial. That occurred on July 5th. and during the meeting on July 5th, new evidence was introduced during public comment, which was outside the context of the public hearing and caused the Planning Commission to direct the planning director to renotice the matter with a modified application based upon urgings from the applicant's representatives and bring it back for reconsideration by the Planning Commission. I brought this up to the City Council's attention based upon my concern that the Planning Commission was acting outside the scope of its authority. It acts in a quasi-judicial manner based upon a final application that's submitted by the applicant and deemed complete by the planning director. What was being contemplated was a change in essence of the evidence that was taken during the Planning Commission and was a change to the Planning Commission's previous denial of that application based upon evidence that was not presented during the public hearing. Additionally, there was information provided on the record suggesting that there was a discussion between a council member and a planning commissioner with regard to application, and that raised my concern about the process involved with it. Again, this was a quasi-judicial process, which means that due process rights attaches not only to the applicant's application, but also to the public's understanding of what the application is. So the municipal code does allow officers of the corporation, that being me being one of them, to appeal all decisions made by the Planning Commission directly to the City Council. My suggestion for the City Council is for it to set a de novo public hearing regarding the matter for sometime in August to consider the Planning Commission's actions. Happy to answer any additional questions.
Any questions to our attorney?
Yeah, just for City Attorney, just for clarification, in reading the minutes and the transcript of the meetings on June 20, of the Planning Commission, June 20 and July 5th, I thought that the June 20 meeting, they were on the right track in, again, looking at independently based on the minutes. But come July 5th, I mean, it just kind of unraveled, so to speak, to put it nicely. And so the recommendation, the action that taken on July 5th by the Planning Commission was to renotice the meeting, correct?
The ultimate action from the Planning Commission on July 5th, after postponing its decision to adopt the resolution of denial, was to direct the director to renotice the public hearing based upon the urgings from the applicant's representatives and from the Planning Commission. Again, my concern is procedural. I make no comments on the content of the public hearing, which is one of the reasons that I encourage the City Council to hold its own de novo public hearing to collect evidence with regard to the matter.
My question is, with the action that they took on July 5th and with recommendation tonight, to order a de novo hearing, what's going to happen to their action? So will that...
The action suspended.
Suspended, okay.
Correct.
You want to clarify that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So we will have a hearing and we will do the final determination.
If you go ahead and schedule the hearing.
That's my recommendation, yes.
So we need to hear it, we can't unwind it.
So the de novo hearing would simply be the application itself. The Planning Commission's decisions would be suspended altogether. So you would make a decision on the actual application for modification of its CUP.
We're just going to rehear everything and make our
Hear
decision.
the evidence.
So we basically start from zero?
Correct.
At that point?
Gotcha.
Okay, all right.
I do believe...
That's what I needed to know.
And Ms. Corpus, I don't know if she's here. I thought there was a representative from the applicant that was here tonight, but I won't vouch for it.
A representative is here from the hospital group.
So I don't know if they're interested in providing public comment, but I encourage you to ask before taking action on the item.
So if we rehear this, everything has to be renoticed?
That's correct.
The total time clock for the applicant starts over?
It will simply be noticed as a public hearing sometime in August, that your next available meeting in August.
Okay.
Okay, I think if the applicant's here, we'd like to have you come to the podium. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, what's your name?
All right, let's start that over again. My name is Sina Samimi. I'm with Jeffrey Mangels, Butler and Mitchell. I am a representative of the hospital here. Thank you for your time. I do appreciate, I understand that the attorney who was covering the Planning Commission hearing had his hands full that evening, and I appreciate what the city attorney has done here procedurally. We actually do not have any objection to the overall premise of what the city attorney has raised tonight. So we're not objecting to the procedures set forth. The only thing that the hospital wants to bring to the attention of the council is that the August 22nd date that is being recommended by the city attorney, we don't think that that's realistic to get the plans that are being modified right now to have them ready in time. And I'll provide a little bit more background because I think it'll help you understand what's happening. In the original CUP modification request that was before the Planning Commission the first time, okay, when they made their decision to deny the resolution, several planning commissioners made it very clear from their comments at the hearing what it is that they were expecting to see in the CUP modification request and how the proposal from the hospital should be modified in order to accommodate that. So the hospital took that very seriously and went, met internally and decided that, okay, well, we want to come back with something that would be palatable for the Planning Commission. We want to get a project approved here. We want to beautify the hospital in a way that everyone's going to agree with. And there were essentially two elements to the application that was before the Planning Commission the first time. The first element involved a block wall requirement that was a condition of approval, and the second was a facade upgrade. Okay, those were in broad terms. That's what we were there before the Planning Commission about. And the comments from the Planning Commissioners were focused mostly on the facade, and that the change that we made to the facade wasn't acceptable for various reasons. And so that's the element that the hospital is going back to the drawing board on, doing design changes. And just this morning, I was forwarded, it wasn't even this morning, it was this afternoon, I was forwarded an email exchange from, they're dealing with their architects now to actually engage in doing these plans. And it is totally unrealistic to have anything in a month. So the only comment that we really have is, if this is going to be continued, which we agree with in general, that it should be pushed out a little bit further. And I would give two options to the council in this regard, and this is based on information that I've heard. And also I have Michael Lurchin here with me, who knows more about the operations on the ground with construction than I do. But there's kind of two options that we would propose instead of a date certain of August 22nd. The first would be to allow the hospital to continue coordinating with Jason Clark and the rest of the planning staff, and when it is available, and we'll try our hardest to get it done as soon as possible, then we can notice it for the hearing. That's one option. Or another option, based on what I'm hearing from the hospital representatives and what I've seen from the architects on the emails that I've seen, is it's going to be at least 3 months that are necessary to do what's needed here.
I don't think that's a problem. I think what we wanted to do is hurry up to benefit you to get it done quicker because we tripped. and we put you behind schedule.
No, I understand that.
I think that's it.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my suggestion to the applicant is to withdraw the application, resubmit it, and then the city council can act as planning agency pursuant to the municipal code, and we'll just call it bypass the planning commission. You can make a decision based upon a modified application.
Just a point of clarification, if the first, so that would mean that the decision gets taken by the city council and
correct.
But we'd still be dealing with the planning staff up until that point. Because there's one other thing that came up at the planning commission
at your schedule.
At our schedule.
At your schedule, your dates.
That makes sense. Okay. The other point that kind of complicates things is that based on the discussions that came up and that were post the first hearing, there were new proposals made to the CUP modification. Things involved. Yeah, so that would all be, so it would all be in a new,
Again, my suggestion is for you to withdraw your current application, submit a new application when you're ready, make a note, when planning staff is here. The municipal code allows the city council to act as planning agency without the need for going through planning commission first. So it does so based upon resolution. So it can take up the planning agency decision with regard to your modified application. You control the schedule, but you need to tomorrow then go in and withdraw your application. No, because it would be a brand-new application. Correct.
understood, understood.
You're going to start somewhat over with us.
I
At your
totally understand.
timeline.
I totally understand.
Okay.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, and the recommendation is appreciated, and I will go back to my client with that. Definitely, I can't make that decision right now.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I don't have anything further to say on this, on what's before you today, but your recommendations are
But formally
appreciated.
withdraw your current application so you can start afresh with the new one. Then we'll work with your schedule at that point.
I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
We want to accommodate you.
I understand. All right.
During-
Thank you very
Will we
much.
be
For this
responsible
hit-
for new fees?
Mr. Mayor.
No.
I think they have the authority to waive fees though, want to. They've already paid
I'd
the
like to
fees.
use
for the
his old
application.
fees for the new program.
They already paid the fees. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question? Because
Yes.
again, in reading the minutes of the meetings, the planning commission was basically ready to bring down the hammer in terms of code enforcement. So what's gonna happen between now and by the time they submit the application?
Beth, are you aware of this circumstance?
Let me,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, first of all, the planning commission doesn't have authority to bring down the hammer with regard to code enforcement. That responsibility lies with the city manager and the city attorney. So they can identify properties that they have problems with on an individual basis, just like any other resident. But as a planning commission, that is completely outside the scope of their authority to be providing direction to the director with regard to code enforcement matters.
I mean, I guess that was my question, Beth. Is there any code enforcement issues you're aware of on that property that need immediate attention?
Not to my knowledge, but I did want to add, I think the reason for some of the urgency is because the conditional use permit had a condition of approval that these modifications be completed by December 2018. So they are currently out of compliance with their current CUP.
So based upon that, and I have to take a look at it, more than likely, we'll simply issue a notice of violation requiring them to submit a new application that is approved to modify the CUP within a certain amount of time, and during that time period, we'll suspend enforcement efforts. But I will make it very clear to the applicant here tonight that it's not going to be for forever. So it's usually a 90-day period where we seek voluntary compliance. So I'm happy to issue that type of thing for 90 days for them to come in and have a modified application. Based upon the applicant's representations tonight, it sounds like that they're interested in hurrying up the process, which is great. That's what we want. But I want to make it very clear for both the council and the audience that Planning Commission does not have authority to be engaging in code enforcement.
Okay. Yeah, my point is, this has been going on for quite some time. If you look at again, based on the minutes, Councilmember Hamada was the chairman of the Planning Commission.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that.
So it's been for quite some time.
Wow.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
May I add to that? I just want,
Any
I
other
was about to
dialogue?
bring that, yeah, just a few. Now, Beth, you'd said that, that the project needed to be completed, issued a permit by 2018, something?
No,
What was
actually,
that?
more
I'm sorry.
specifically, that the facade improvements, the block wall improvements, the signage
Yeah, that's
improvements
right.
be completed
Believe me, I was trying to.
by
yeah.
December 2018.
Was that
December
part of the
31st,
action,
2018.
In 2016?
That was the 2016 condition of approval.
All right. Yes, I was the chair at that time, yeah. I just wanted to, it's all coming back, yeah. I'm going, oh my. So, maybe the applicant can come back and maybe explain what's been the delays, because it's been a long time running, and we all wondered why it hadn't come to fruition.
Sina Samimi again on behalf of the applicant. Yes, that was a big part of the discussion at the Planning Commission hearing on the first round, June 20th. And essentially, I can tell the story from when I got involved. I was not involved in 2018. I was involved basically November, December of 2018 when I first reached out to planning staff when I was contacted by the client to, they were getting estimates for the facade changes and for the block wall that were astronomical compared to what their projections were. So just for the block wall, it was, I don't have the numbers in front of me right now. We had it in the PowerPoint, but we're talking millions of dollars for just a block wall change, because they would have had to take down the entire block wall, put new footings on, and do the entire thing again up to 8 feet. And, so we did a sound study to determine whether that's even going to be necessary anymore, given the new operations of the hospital. And on top of that, with the facade changes, there were, big differences in what they had projected in the costs. So the main driver of this and the delay and the reason to submit the modification was to get those two main conditions of approval, to either get them modified to be something a little bit more palatable for the hospital in terms of price, and also something that would be acceptable to the city in terms of how it looks in the facade and the upgrades that everyone wants to do. So that was the balance that we were trying to hit, and it just took a long time. And then COVID hit, and then everything else happened, and then we got delayed another 3 years. So all of that, and then we also submitted 3 different iterations of our modification application to the Planning Commission, because we had first started out with several different options, but some of even those options that we were looking at were not feasible from the hospital's perspective. But I think now that we've received some input from the Planning Commission, it's going to be easier now. Now the hospital better understands what was going on, because a lot of the players that are here right now were not there in 2016.
Yeah, because I recall Ultimed was the
exactly. It was a different.
So I just leave it.
Yeah, exactly. It was a different.
Yeah, I want to caution one thing though. What we have is unmet expectations. What the Planning Commission was originally submitted and what was being proposed. Now, what I don't want to happen here is that you're starting from ground zero on what the advice you got from the Planning Commission over the last several months or years, whenever you've been dealing with this. I think the council has a reasonable expectation that your project will come in as close as to what the original submittal was in 2016. And that still is the standard we're working off of on this thing. So if this is going to be sort of an effort to downgrade that product and lower the expectations of that, I can't give any advice to what the council is going to say, because they haven't done the public hearing yet, but I would say you would start from that basis and work out from there.
That makes sense. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, I know it does refresh it all. And again, I'll look forward to the new application. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just one quick one for the staff. Just out of courtesy, was the Planning Commission advised of tonight's request, or just FYI, or?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I have not advised the Planning Commission. I can't speak for internal management.
All right. No, just.
I have not either.
Okay, what's your pleasure, guys? Receive and file?
Based upon the representations from the applicant, my recommendation would be a receive and file at this point, with the understanding that the applicant is going to withdraw its current application, submit a modified application. No additional application fee will be given. My office will be sending out a notice of violation requiring them to submit an application and have it heard by the city council as sitting as the planning agency within the next 90 days. If that does not occur, our office will take additional action.
Okay.
So
we'll reach it.
Just clarification, when do you expect them to withdraw the application?
When do I expect them? Tomorrow. But
Tomorrow, okay.
Whether or not that happens is a separate question.
Okay, so what's going to happen if they don't withdraw the application within a reasonable time?
I will be back in front of the city council saying that they did not fulfill the promises that they just made tonight.
I want to make sure that we have a clear path. Okay.
Okay. Oh, receive and file with attorney's recommendations, and without objection, that'll be the order.
Well, yeah.
You want a voice vote?
Can we add, we could advise the planning commission of what's going on then? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just that.
Okay.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we follow the attorney's direction.
Okay.
Call roll.
Councilmember Coops,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Santenaz.
Aye.
Councilmember Hamada,
All right.
Mayor Dutton.
Aye. All right, we made it to the consent calendar, gentlemen.
Woohoo.
Okay, do we have any conflicts or any items that need to be pulled for discussion? I'll go first. I'm going to recuse myself from 14D due to a property conflict.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull item C.
And Victor is C. Anyone else? Okay, Victor, take it away on Victor C. Victor C, Victor.
Mr. Mayor, just want to pull that out. That's the conversion of two-way stops to four-way stop, and just want to thank staff for their continued efforts to utilize our traffic calming tactics. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, that was easy. Yeah. Okay, does anybody want to,
I'll move the consent calendar. to the
Second.
balance.
okay. And I'm gonna recuse myself from 14D, so we have a motion on the floor by Councilmember Coops and a second by Councilmember Sanchez. Call roll.
Councilmember Coops,
Aye.
Councilmember Sanchez,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Santenaz.
Aye.
Councilmember Hamada.
Aye.
Mayor Dutton.
Aye. Got the last one because it was like Spanish. Council reports, Mr. Coops.
No council report from me tonight.
Oh, good report. Councilmember Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick one. On Saturday, July 9th, I had the pleasure of representing our Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Sonny Santinez, at the Philippine-American Friendship Day celebration.
You missed that?
No.
It's your day of the
Represent
year.
the city.
Well, they introduced me as, let me clarify, they introduced me as your representative.
Oh.
And,
Wow.
so they wish you well, and they wish us as a city well, and
thank
all
you.
joking aside, they did clarify it down the road. That concludes my comments, Mr. Mayor.
That was a great one.
Mayor Pro Tem Santa Ynez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to, on a very sad note, I'd like to request that City Council's meeting tonight be adjourned in memory of Saitel Perez Karachi. She's a good friend of mine. Saitel Perez Karachi was Mayor Pro Tem of the city of Duarte. She was born in Quezon City, Philippines on August 8, 1972, and passed away June 25, 2022, at the age of 49 after a long battle with cancer. Saitel and her family moved to Los Angeles in 1975 and then decided to settle in Duarte in 1985. She graduated from Duarte High School in 1989 and went on to graduate from Woodbury University in Burbank before returning home to the city that she loved. In 2003, She and her husband Casey purchased a home in Duarte shortly after being married in Duarte's Royal Oaks Park. Seidel was first elected to the Duarte City Council in 2001 and served as mayor 4 terms in 2006, 2011, 2015, and 2019. She was the first Duarte High School graduate and first Filipino American elected to the Duarte City Council. As a public servant, she participated in many facets of government and civics in Duarte and beyond. To name a few, she was elected by her colleagues to the National League of Cities Board of Directors, as well as the League of California Cities Board. One of her proudest accomplishments was initiating the Mayor's Youth Council to help students become familiar and active with government. Seidel was thankful every day to have the opportunity to make a difference and serve the public for over 21 years on the City Council. Seidel leaves behind a loving family, including her parents, Lino and Russell Paras, husband Casey Karachi, stepdaughter Dr. Blake Karachi, son Jack Russell, and brothers Bertrand and John Paul and their wives. And I had the opportunity to spend little time with Seidel at the Contact Cities seminar in May in Indian Wells, and that was our last visit. And she was really ill when I saw her last May, and she tried her very best to be at the last meeting that she was able to attend. And she was in a wheelchair and she could hardly stand up, but her spirit was, her fighting spirit was there, and she wanted to see her friends for the last time in that big gathering in Indian Wells. So our deepest sympathies and heartfelt condolences go out to the entire Paras Karachi family. So with that, Mayor, I'd like to request that this meeting be adjourned in her memory.
Okay. Councilmember Hamada.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Quickly, on the 29th, I did attend the Liberty Water Zoom meeting in regards to the conservation measures that are being set forth by the state. Liberty is going to work with communities to hopefully save water, but they'll still conduct their business accordingly. I did ask some questions about the quality of their wells, and levels are fine. Also, there are future connections to actually, inject, other water into the spreading ground so that, the wells could be, replenished. So, but one key point they indicated was that they will not levy any surcharges should, that's their goal at least. If consumers do not comply with the conservation measures, they're going to work with, again, all consumers to deal with it, and hopefully, keep enough water to keep things going. On the 4th of July, I did my annual ride along with public safety. We had a few hours of viewing a lot of action. Yes, it appeared that there was less than last year, but you'll be hearing, or if you haven't yet, be hearing the numbers. They're very comparable to last year, at least from number of citations. Just quickly on my SCAG meetings, both with the Transportation and the Regional Council, there's possibly some future funding via the Regional Early Action Planning, 2.0 fundings framework, and so staff, take a look at that, check into that. And lastly, on the 7th, I did check the Street Fest, and I had the pleasure to bump into our new captain. So had a little chat with him, and again welcomed him on board, and told him we'll look forward to speaking with him in a few here. So he's a very pleasant person, and he was just checking out the community, and he definitely stayed around. So he was enjoying himself. So that was it. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Okay, I don't have any comments other than we'll close the meeting. I'm going to adjourn tonight's meeting in memory of Saitel Parez Karachi to the next regular meeting of the Bellflower City Council at 5:30 p.m. on Monday, August 8th, 2022.